Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Slot One Super Podcast. We are back with episode 40. That is honestly pretty insane to say out loud of the Slot One Super Podcast. Thank you all for being here once again. Of course, myself, Dokkan Assets. I am joined by my two lovely co-hosts, Minatos Flash and Mass Ningen to my sides. How y'all doing today? What's up,
I
boys?
said I'm doing fine, but what'd you do? What'd you say?
I feel bad. That's what I would do.
I'm doing good though.
Good.
Yeah, all good. Happy to be here.
Guys?
Lots of stuff going on in both versions, so we love to see that.
Yes, we have some interesting stuff to talk about. Yes, we have some very interesting shenanigans to go over for this week. Obviously, Global just got the AGL Frieza celebration, and JP just got the celebration that the Global had before, which was, of course, the Fizz Rosé celebration. So we're going to go through all of that on this episode. And, of course, we'll talk about some of the shenanigans that have happened in between and some of the stuff that, we have coming up and all of that good stuff. But as always, before we get started, if you would like to support the show, don't forget we will be reading all of your donations and super chats at the end of the stream. So don't worry, we are not forgetting you. We're just saving them for the end. Gotta save the best for last, right? So, of course, we will be reading them at the end. But with that being said, let's start off with Global for today. Obviously, Global got the Frieza celebration first and foremost, which was obviously, if I'm not mistaken, that was the Dokkan Fest right after anniversary, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. For some reason, I was like, hold on, was there something in between? But no. Yeah, he was obviously the Dokkan Fest right after anniversary. So it's kind of funny, actually, that he's the Dokkan Fest almost like right before anniversary, to be honest. It's kind of funny how that ended up working out. But either way, right, obviously with Frieza came a bunch of the Frieza-related events, right? We got the, almost call it the Legendary Frieza Zone, the Legendary Frieza event, right? Obviously for, finally a new version of the Fighting Legend Goku, right? Got a couple of other related events. So, Ningen, being our resident global player here, how are we feeling about this Frieza?
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. I know we talked about him when he came out on JP. His biggest issue really is that he kind of fits in that same category as the like someone like LR Omega, where he as a unit himself is really good. If he gets the things that he needs, like if he has the allies that he needs for his passive and all that kind of stuff, I think he's really good. I did the 55% showcase for him after I did my summons. I always do those as like freshly awakened, so he's like full link level 1. So as a big bad boss's character, obviously that means he's not going to be at his full potential unless you're on lower HP, and even at 55% level 1 links, he's easily able to get up to like 1 million defense, and he's dropping like 11 million attack stat supers, multiple in the same turn, and considering what he is essentially designed to do, right, like he is a damage dealing unit, he's not a defensive unit, so 1 million raw defense, it means he's at least tanking like all, basically all normals. You only really have to worry about super attacks for him, and he's doing a decent bit of damage. But the unfortunate thing is that you do have to build the team a certain way. Like he needs those Terrifying Conquerors allies, and then of course his leader skill, whilst there is a lot of crossover, he doesn't actually have Terrifying Conquerors as one of his leader skills, so it kind of limits his team building a little bit, because it's Planetary Destruction and is it Space Traveling Warriors, and then you have to make sure that like at least 4 of those, I think it is, are Terrifying Conquerors as well, if you want him to get all of his buffs. So it's weird, because it means the team that you end up making for him, especially for certain events, can be the thing that lets it down a little bit. But he himself, like I say, as long as he has what he needs, he has all of those parts of his passive active, I think as a unit he is very good. So unfortunately, it's something that we say for units fairly often when they get released in these kind of situations, and sadly it very often applies to villains over the superclass units. But he's just another one of those units that will be really good when there's some more buffs for his team. You know, if they drop like a Dokkan Fest baby or something, right, who's like someone who's a space traveling warrior and a terrifying conqueror, that is then a new, like, you know, top tier in the meta character, those will all be really good buffs for this Frieza. But for now, like, I mean, his team's not terrible, especially for global. Like, I don't think you'll have much trouble beating all the content that's available on global at the moment. Even like Kid Buu, this Frieza greatly lowers attack on Super, which is quite interesting. But yeah, overall, he's pretty fun. He's just not anything too crazy. Probably an easy skip, although his banner, they definitely wanted to tempt people to summon. Because I'm assuming on JP, his banner didn't have anything like special at all, right? No discounts or anything like that.
Nope. Why would it?
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just an old banner. And not to mention the what do you call it? I know it's kind of funny too, because the Super Hercule statues were on Topo's banner. And now those are just moved to Frieza's
So
banner.
you're saying Topo's not gonna have a banner?
Well, I know that's the theory.
No, I'm just saying Topo probably won't have the Super Hercule statues attached to it, I guess. But I mean, to be fair, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. It could be. Because it is kind of weird, like, what's the point of adding them to Frieza when they could have just come with Topo? But,
Or they could have, or if they weren't going to be in April, you know, why didn't they just put them on the April banner? And then Frieza specifically, it's really odd.
Yeah, because it made sense for them to be on JP at that time, because that is the time of that celebration, right, for the April Fools and all the Hercule stuff. And then they were in the files for Global, but they weren't available. And then they've just randomly put them on this banner of all banners. I guess they just they wanted to heavily load this banner with every incentive for you to summon as possible. Because not only are you getting these Hercule statues, you're getting Kais. The banners were, so it was discounted steps. So it was 110 stones to do the first 3 multis. Then the third multi is guaranteed featured. Then you get a free multi after that. And you can do that whole rotation 3 times. So it's like 12 multis for 110 stones, and 3 of those multis are guaranteed featured. So, sorry, 1 rotation's 110. So yeah, it's 3 rotations for 330, which is pretty good. It's one of those things where if this was a banner for a unit that was actually really good, this would be like a must summon for like everyone, right? But they just loaded all of these incentives on here to try and get people to summon, I guess, like, you know, right before the anniversary. It's the stereotypical bait banner, right? It's like, hey, look at all this like stuff you get, but unfortunately,
Minato.
Yeah, not really worth it.
Do you hear this guy, bro? All these discounts and Kais and why do we get
I'm a global player, blah blah. I have a someone in my chat was like, "Where are all your Kais?" And I had like 100 Kais. I'm like, bro, I'm not a global.
Yeah, I got over from the ones that gave me from just summoning on the Frieza banner. I got to having over 1,500 of the.
It's the points. I just don't get it, bro.
Well, that's the thing. I am using them, but we just get given so many because, like, by the time we got new units, right? So today we got Frieza, Trunks, and Doria, but I had like 50 odd of the physical dozing Kais. So I used all of those and got almost all 3 of them up to SA10 already. So then I only had to use a few of the actual Kais to get them all finished off. So I still have loads left. That's the thing. I do use them, but they give out so many now, I guess, for global. But yeah, I got pretty lucky.
It's like no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I got lucky with my summons overall. Like I got the unfortunately, I think the guaranteed featured step, I'm pretty sure gave me the Doria like every single time.
No.
I think actually maybe the third one was Turles, I'm not sure, but I got the last copy I needed to rainbow Turles. I did that good old I rainbowed Doria before I pulled Frieza.
Classic.
But that's more so just because it just kept throwing Dodorias at me. It wasn't like I was like, 1,000 stones deep and still hadn't pulled Frieza. So I think I did all the discounts, and then it was 3 multis after that. I got Goku Black Rift. So in total, it's like 480 stones. But I got a ton of featured units. Like I finished rainbowing Turles. I didn't have Gohan and Piccolo, and I pulled 3 copies of them. Nice. And then I did manage to get a copy of the Trunks. Obviously we'll talk about him in a little bit. And then rainbowed Doria. So I would say overall, like, even though I would advise most people to not really go hard on the banners, like for 480 stones, I would say that's a pretty decent amount of stuff that I got from the summons. So pretty happy with that.
Not bad. Yeah, I don't think that's bad at all. I'd say probably like any unit under like 500 stones. I think it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I would say so.
I would agree.
Definitely not too bad.
Yep. I know that I think on JP, my luck was actually kind of crazy on JP. I think I got a few minutes ago. It was like 800, 700, 800 stones, and I ended up getting 3 copies of Frieza, and I was like, oh, so maybe the Frieza banner is blessing people. I saw a lot of people get Frieza when they did the multis. Probably because I didn't even know there was a guaranteed step. Probably because of that. Right, there's that guaranteed step there. That probably is a huge effect.
Yeah,
but I saw a lot of people get Frieza, so I'm like, you know what? That's pretty cool, right? You know, if you wanted Frieza, a lot of people got him. Frieza is a cool looking unit aesthetically as well.
Yeah,
I think his active skill's really good. I know Dokkan has its. I saw you quote about the active skill English.
Yeah, it's kind of audio.
A little weird. I feel like
it was strange.
It was weird. The intro animation sounds great though.
Yeah, I thought the intro was pretty good. He does sound a little almost like bored, but it's like definitely not as bad as that.
I don't think it's like bad. I think it's fine.
It's just I don't know. It's very interesting. Like, because the weird thing is, when it comes to like Frieza nowadays, it's Frieza's usually voiced by gosh. Mills. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his first name. How do you pronounce it?
Isn't it just Damien?
Is it Damien? I thought it was like Danon. I don't know. I can't read. I'm a Dragon Ball fan. What do you expect from me? But either way, right? Mr. Mills, I guess, is just the easier way to put it, right? He's the modern voice for Frieza. And obviously, we know that because he tweets about it. And he obviously like talks about, oh yeah, I was like, because he did like the voice direction for
Zero, right?
Yeah, for Sparking Zero, I believe he was like the main guy. I know for Breakers, actually, for the current season that's still on with Zamasu. Yeah, he also did that too. Yeah, and like everything that he's been working on recently, I feel like has been really good. And then obviously he is the voice of Frieza besides, obviously like being the voice director. So I don't know. It was just like really weird to hear it because I was thinking like, man, usually bro cooks a lot more than this. So maybe like it wasn't him or something. Maybe they got somebody else.
Impossible.
Yeah, I don't know. There isn't really like, I suppose you could just tag him on Twitter and ask, but like realistically, I don't even know if he could say, like legally.
So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna be like, you're gonna tag him like, hey, yo, dude, were you sick?
Yeah, well, I just
kind of rude.
I won't like ask like any specifics. I'd just be like, hey, were you responsible for this Frieza voice? Like that would be,
And then I'll reply with the clip of what you said on the podcast.
I mean, you just linked my tweet that I said, hey, was this like blah 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 blah? Yeah,
that's funny.
I don't know, because like I want to give the bro the benefit of the doubt because usually he's cooking, so I don't know. It's just a little weird, but so either way,
it is what it is. Maybe somehow they pulled it from Xenoverse. It's definitely
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
Who knows? Well,
it's so funny too. Like 2 weeks ago, I think now, a week ago, something like that. A buddy of mine was playing through Kakarot in the VC that me and some of my friends hang out with. And I knew that they took voice lines from other stuff, of course, because we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, there are so many voice lines they took from Kakarot. Oh my gosh.
Dokkan does that quite a bit.
Yeah, they do like to do that, which is kind of funny, honestly. But either way, though, I do think it's all right though. Like it's nothing too bad. But I am glad that people were able to get Frieza. I actually did see the same thing on the timeline too, that a lot of people seemed like they were actually able to grab him, so that's cool. They definitely it's pretty clear to see that they really wanted this banner to be like, big boy anniversary bait for sure.
That's the thing, people see like cheap summons with guaranteed steps, and then some people who would not have otherwise will summon because like I say, you always see like the banner will be upcoming and people will say like, oh, no one's gonna summon on this bait, and then the timeline's just full of people like, oh, I pulled Frieza on the guaranteed step. People do like some guaranteed summons. I guess it always feels like it's that little bit less of a risk when you're getting something guaranteed, but unfortunately you could be getting the worst of the featured units or You know, specifically the one you don't need. Because I think the multi where I got Turles as the guaranteed featured, it was like the third rotation. I'd already pulled the last copy of him that I needed. So that guaranteed featured multi being him, it was a dead pull essentially. But
yeah,
SSR copy.
yeah.
His SSR art is pretty cool, to be fair.
The arts for him and the banner units, their SSR art's really cool because it's them in like the shadows in like the ship, isn't it? It looks cool. But
yeah, I like the art. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. And obviously it's like, I don't know why, it's like kind of a weird feeling every time. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but for some reason I feel like it makes me happy every time I see a Dokkan Fest that I feel like is something that a lot of people would have maybe skipped, that I see a bunch of people summon on, because it's like, oh, it's cool to see this unit's actually going to get some use. I don't know. Like, it's a weird feeling because it's like, you know, I don't know. On JP, when I look on the friends list, I'm like, man, there are just no AGL Frieza friends. So
yeah,
I don't know. I always think it's nice when I see a bunch of people pulling for the unit, because it's like, it'll be a little bit more of a unique, you know, I don't know, a little bit more unique gameplay, I suppose, or whatever you'd want to call it. So, but either way, though, that is Frieza himself. The Doria is the other unit that we have to talk about, obviously, because I know you mentioned that you got him rainbowed on the banner as well. Any thoughts on the Doria, Ningen, especially considering you have him rainbowed?
Yeah, I thought I'd throw him on the list of units to bring up here. I know we talked about both the units when they came out on JP, so we don't have to spend a huge amount of time on this guy. But like the main thing I wanted to say about him is that he's not necessarily the best unit. Like he's not, I don't think he comes out and is like, you know, he's the new best banner unit. But the thing I do like about his design is that he is the kind of banner unit that we ideally want to see on these banners, where the whole point of his design essentially is to help out the main unit. Like if you pull Frieza, you probably want to pull this Doria as well, right? Because he's supporting him, he's got some links with him, and then obviously he's designed to be run with him because he gets an extra attack and guard if he's being run around like Frieza units. Whereas like, obviously we're going to talk about him in a minute, even though I think he's a good unit, like, you know, Trunks is like not even on Rosé's team as like the perfect parallel like example. He's his banner unit, but like they don't go together. So the Doria I think is a very good banner unit for Frieza. And I mean, like, you know, he does all right. He gets okay defense after super. He has guard. He's just kind of that typical, you float him in slot 3 for support, give him a full dodge build, and hope he doesn't get supered by the biggest bosses, essentially. But yeah, he can be pretty good. And as Frieza, as we've said, is one of his biggest drawbacks is his team. Obviously, getting this guy as well is another one of the units that you'd want to include on the team. At least I would say for now on global. And maybe JP, I don't know if there's really been many buffs for him since he came out on JP, but he's probably one of the units you'd want to be running on the optimal Frieza team, like, build. So,
look, just
decent.
Worldwide Namek Saga is going to save this team.
I was going to say, the next big thing, realistically, is worldwide, isn't it? Unless it's like, unless maybe Tanabata, I guess, for their potentially being a Terrifying Conquerors, like, Dokkan Fest or something.
Yeah. I mean, it could be where Tanabata is Namek, and the Worldwide Celebration is GT, like we talked about.
Oh yeah,
and then Baby comes. The Baby is also Terrifying Conquerors. It could be interesting. We'll see what they do. But you know, so far this year they've been really good at making these teams good. Obviously, they made superheroes so really good. Who came out in March? Obviously, Vegeta's team was good. Frieza's the one that's like only one that's kind of sitting there. But Topo's team, they buffed special pose like super mega hard. Majin Buu Saga, they buffed really hard. Rosé is part of Super Bosses, so in a sense he's like part of like the Broly trio kind of segment. Super Bosses still needs a little bit more, but Rosé, it's less Rosé's team and more Rosé's in addition to Broly's team.
Yeah,
and he has technically a place. Whilst Frieza's team is not on the level of Broly's team, but I'm sure it'll get there because we have like AGL Full Power Frieza EZA, in third form Frieza, and give us Namek Celebration, and then we can be cooking. We'll have to wait and see how they do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And
maybe Zarbon is the banner unit for like a Final Form Frieza Dokkan Fest.
That would be sick. Transforms into Monster Zarbon?
Yeah, let's go.
W. But yeah, I always do. I completely agree. I always prefer when they make these banner units like something that actually works with, assists, and helps the main unit, because it always feels like kind of dumb when they don't.
Might as well talk about Trunks.
Oh yeah, so that's where our transition is kind of leading into, right? We have the mischievous individual himself who has caused quite a rise in the Dokkan
went too far back in time.
Yeah, he's been a little bit up to some shenanigans. Crono is not going to be too happy with our boy here. We have AGL Trunks. So obviously, right, this guy has been the cause of quite a little bit of controversy recently, and I actually have a little bit of a crackhead theory due to the shenanigans with this guy too. But in terms of what went down this week, obviously we saw, right, that this guy came with Rosé on JP. I know that a lot of people were speculating that Rosé's banner was going to have a banner unit. I know, Minato, you were one who said that yourself.
Yep. I'm always right. What can I say?
Was right about that. That's right. And so
I just want to say, people were like, "No, Rosé's not going to get banner unit. He would have been on jail.
To be fair, I remember a long time ago, probably even around it might have even been around the time he literally came out on Global, but I do remember you being one of the first people that was like, imagine he comes out on JP and has a banner unit. But I feel like that was more so playing into the anti-global shenanigans as opposed to actually thinking he was.
The thing is that I was like genuinely serious at the same time. It was funny, but it's just a thing where global will probably do that, and I didn't expect the banner to stay the same for JP because I mean the whole reason Rosé's banner came early to global at this point, I don't even think it's because of the sync. They haven't even been trying. It's 100% because they needed to return Vegito Blue and Zamasu. They wanted to return those characters before the anniversary, which would be 11 months after worldwide, and that's how it happens every year.
Because it is cool that they did that, but
it is cool, but it feels like they pushed Rosé up to the point where I don't know. I mean, even Garage Spender was like, it doesn't even feel like Rosé's animations were finished, and it's like
that'll play into what that'll play into something I have to say in a couple minutes. But
it's the thing where it's like, it almost feels like Rosé was just pushed up again ahead of time just so those characters could return. And we know that Trunks, if you guys don't know, Trunks was finished after the Golden Week characters. So it's a thing of like they 100% didn't even finish Rosé, and they just pushed them up ahead of time to be on global, and they gave obviously the banner JP was going to be different because of that, because obviously the banner unit. But this is still like talking about Trunks himself. I'll see if some of the stuff for Dokkan has to say. Terrible choice. I mean, he has a new name, Super Saiyan 2 Trunks. This is the first time Super Saiyan 2 Trunks feature has been in the game at all, which is good. It's a good thing. But it's a thing of what does he do for Rosé? I'm like, the reason why I wanted a banner unit for Rosé is because I'm like, okay, we can get like a rainbow orb.
He needs a rainbow orb changer,
Yeah, but then here's a banner unit, but we don't care about Rosé. That's what I feel like.
Well, like I say, he's literally not even on Rosé's leader skill. Like, you can't run him on Rosé's team. Obviously, you can run them on like future teams under a different leader together, but you can't even run him on Rosé's team. So
he does nothing to Rosé. Like, so it's just a thing where he's just kind of there. I don't know. It's very odd for them to have chosen this Trunks like that, and I feel like there's literally like, why not just a normal Zamasu or a Zamasu Goku? You know, I think that there are plenty of avenues they could have gone. Trunks himself, from what I see in his details, he seemed like he's a decent little character, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, dude, he's insane, he's crazy, he's the best unit on the banner. No. So that's just my thoughts on this Trunks. I mean, he could get a 90% dodge chance though in some situations, which is kind of crazy.
They could have, in regards to that, like Goku Black and Zamasu, we still, the only, I believe anyway, the only base form Goku Black and Zamasu we have is still the TUR of the
Yeah.
LR.
Yeah.
Could have
So
gone
they
or like
could've
an
done that.
exchange. Well, I feel like an
That
exchange is
too.
worthy for a Dokkan Fest, honestly.
Yeah.
Like a Dokkan Fest Zamasu that you could exchange back and forth between him and Goku Black would be kind of cool.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Maybe
that would
they
be
make
sick.
it the tag mechanic, or we could get a Zamasu. Like my idea was like a banner unit Zamasu that has a transformation into the Zamasu Goku, where he uses the Super Dragon
That'd be
Balls,
cool.
makes the witch,
Mm.
right? I think that'd be interesting. I mean, this Trunks has a voice intro, so like
Yeah.
He does. He
Which is
does
pretty
indeed.
cool.
Which that was like, I remember when you, I remember seeing you say that on the timeline. I was like, dude, this is too funny. You're telling me they gave the banner unit an intro, like, you know, with all this shenanigans going on, just to add insult to injury, they really cooked on, you know, giving the boy a bunch of extra
they put
stuff.
care into him. His animations
Right.
are like pretty nice, actually.
They are. I did a video on that too because I was like, yo, these are actually pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. Like genuinely, I saw a lot of people saying on the timeline that they thought that this Trunks' animations were better than Rosé's. And I'm not gonna say all that because I don't like to, most of the time anyway, I don't really like to compare units that are on like different tiers of it. Where it's like, you know, usually I like to like compare Dokkan Fest to Dokkan Fest and, you know, LR to LR and
Yeah.
side banner unit to side banner unit, right? So because I feel like it's more fair to make that comparison than it is to compare the you know, like the side banner unit to you know, a Dokkan Fest. But I don't know if I can say I necessarily disagree with that either.
Just the
I
thing
guess.
of like Rosé, they added a lot of animations, like Key Blast, nullification. I don't know if it's a counter actually or a nullification.
It's just a nullification, yeah.
Yeah, nullification for a Q Blast. They added the I mean, we had the 12 key, the transfer 12 key.
He's got the
active
transformation,
skill.
there's the domain, like he's got two supers because obviously one when he transforms and one untransformed. He's got the negation thing. Like he does have a bunch of different
There's
ones.
cool things.
I mean, the Trunks, I think
You
it's
know-
more so
Yeah.
just a case of like I'm one of those people, I recognize that, you know, Rosé doesn't have the best animations, but I don't personally think they're that bad. But I think it's more so just a case
I
of
think they're fine.
they clearly put a lot of more care into making Trunkses than they did for Rosé's. Not to necessarily say like which one's better, but it just feels like they put more effort into his ones because he's got some really nice like close-up frames and stuff in his super attack and everything.
So
It's just, you know, very funny. To me, I'm 100% certain that Rosé was pushed up ahead of time early before they could add finishing touches.
See,
you know what would be really funny if JP got a completed version, quote unquote.
Can you imagine if he had like better
Imagine-
animations on JP? People would be going
JP
crazy.
just had better
That would
looking
be
animations. That would be
that would be
they
insane.
had to know like, okay, we can't do that.
Right. They
We
definitely
can't go
do.
too far.
Yeah, because like that's what kind of plays in the whole thing that I was thinking from the speculation from this guy is that I do completely agree. I think that I mean it seems like it's like, to me, I don't even know if I mean like it is like, obviously it's just a theory because we don't know it for sure, but I feel like just looking at the evidence that's there, it's pretty clear that, you know, this guy was pushed out early and seemingly like almost incomplete in the animation department where there's so many things that they could have done. I mean, I remember when I took a look at him, I would talked about that there are so many like in between frames that were missing, and you know, there was a lot of things that felt like they were missing, excuse me, or off about the animation that they should have added. And so I do think that they were either like rushing this guy and then he didn't end up turning out as good because they rushed him out. Or I don't know if I would necessarily like, it's hard to say that, oh yeah, he was literally incomplete, right? Because obviously we don't know that. And I wouldn't necessarily say that because obviously it's like when you look at the animations, it's like, yeah, okay, well, you know, he's still like, he has animations that aren't like, you know, terrible or anything, you know what I mean? It's not like, you know, they're unwatchable, right? But it definitely kind of feels like that they rushed them out. And I feel like the fact that Trunks is there and he wasn't there on Global's banner is extremely telling to that fact as well. Because that would lead me to believe that they like were just not done with everything, and they were like, well, we need an excuse to bring back these units on global. So, we're going to push up Rosé early, even though, the whole like celebration, everything is not done yet. So I personally think that that's the case. That's my little bit of like crackhead theory, all things considered. Especially considering the fact that, for one, they just threw this guy on Frieza's banner, right? Like just because, right? Just to kind of get him out, right? Because obviously, since the sync is happening, they needed to obviously like have him be available on global, so they didn't just like throw it on one banner. So I feel like that right there is pretty, once again, kind of telling. Also, I was talking about too, I was like, man, I know obviously people have been talking about like the funny Xenoverse cutscene where it's like, oh, of course Trunks is supposed to be there, right? Because he appears in the cutscene where Frieza's about to blow up the planet, right? And then he pulls up in Xenoverse. So
I didn't think about that. That's great.
Yeah, that was the best justification I saw, honestly. It was pretty funny. But I think it's like, especially for people who are just like casual players, this will be like extremely confusing to them in terms of like, people who don't know about the sync or who don't really follow the game like that. Those people are going to be like, dog, what are you doing?
Like, why is there
the people who don't
the Frieza banner?
Right, exactly. People are going to be so confused on that front. So I think that like, doesn't help either.
Are we getting a new Future Saga character soon?
Right, that's what it seems like. I would think people would be really confused. And on top of all that too, I don't know. It just like it kind of. I had one more point to say, and now I can't think of it. Oh my gosh, it's eluding my mind. Shoot, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Well, either way, the whole point is that obviously, it just seems like from everything that we got and all the evidence at play and all that, it just kind of seems like that they pushed out early, which is a bit of a shame, honestly, because I know that a lot of people have been really looking forward to a new Rosé, and especially with the fact that we got shafted with low-key shafted, but also not with obviously no Rosé LR Part 2 that we were so convinced that we were getting.
I was never convinced, but
but like it kind of stinks that then the next Rosé unit that we get is one that feels very underwhelming in kit and animations. Like, I know one of my buddies who's like the biggest Rosé fan that I know, or one of them anyway, was like, dog, I ain't downloading the game for this. This guy sucks. So, yeah. Oh, and then the other thing I do remember, because I reread it in chat, was the whole thing where on global, this is something else that I definitely wanted to touch on. I think I know Minato probably wanted to mention this too, about the whole thing where I don't believe that it was that his kit is wrong, right? Isn't it? It's worded incorrectly on global.
I could explain it.
At
this point, we might as well move on to the Rosé talk then. Start talking about him. So it's like, okay, it's weird. So how do I explain it? It's like it was worded wrong, but also the effect wasn't working properly in a sense. Okay. So what they intended to do is they basically I'm trying to find the right word to explain it. 1 second here. I gotta bring up the kit in a second. Actually, real quick.
That's fun. Well, while you're looking it up, the whole thing I was gonna say in regards to like my point with that is that also it really feels like the fact that they waited until he came out on JP to fix him on global also feels really telling to me.
Yeah, that leaves a bad taste to like mouth as a global player. Like I saw a meme that I retweeted that was literally like someone saying like, "Hey, all it takes for them to fix a global first is for it to come out on JP." And it's like, it's kind of true.
Right?
Like,
it is true. It feels like. It feels not only is it like so disrespectful for global players, where it feels really like, we just don't care. And we'll fix it when it comes out on the main version of the game.
Yeah.
It's also just like, bro, as far as I understand, that is not that hard of a thing to fix, right? Like, that is a pretty easy fix, changing a couple of numbers and just changing a little bit of the data like that.
I think the reason why is because
ahead.
Rosé is not going to be available in global right now for a bit. So I feel like just like how it's like if they easy a character without bringing the character back on a banner. So unless they're going to bring Rosé back, they're not going to update him. I think is their thought process, which is dumb.
Yeah,
but it's like it lines up with their thought process on. I guess to them it'd be like, oh, it'd be dumb if we put the implemented this buff without having the character return, and we don't want to change the Frieza banner too much. I don't know. But anyways, just a quick reminder before we continue on to Rosé. If you guys want to help support the podcast, you have any questions, comments, or shout outs, again, we're going to be reading all donations and super chats out at the end of the show. But besides that, Rosé, dude, I have brought it up right here. So on global, how it's worded. Launches an additional super attack every time the character attacks 5 times in battle was the original wording. And I guess what was intended was, okay, every time you attack 5 times, you would end up getting the super, which means that as people thought that you'd be able to get it twice in a turn if you line up the attacks correctly. Let's say you get 4 attacks turn 1, then you get 6 attacks turn 2. People assumed that, okay, we'd be able to get 2 additional supers guaranteed on that second turn because I'd be getting my 5th attack and then another set of 5 attacks. The reason why from what I heard, it doesn't work that way is because the guaranteed additional super attack are the last attacks you do, right? And what happens is the count doesn't actually start again until you actually do that super attack. So because it's the last attack of the turn, any of the additionals you get with the rainbow key spheres, for example, actually do not count towards another 5 counts. And I think that they intend for it to actually do counts. But since it didn't actually do that, it was missing out on the extra additional super attack that should have been there based on the wording, right? It's just an internal thing with the game that I think that if they fix it, if they like changed it, it would change it for potentially some other characters and potentially bring some bugs. So they're like, okay, what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna buff the character and we're gonna make add the extra line where he also does another super attack every time he attacks 10 times in battle. And that will then get them essentially what their intention was, where you could do up to 2. You can get a second guaranteed additional super attack via his passive from attacking 5 times twice, right? Because the count would still continue for that second line of the passive, even with those rainbow key sphere additionals that you get, which did not count for another 5 attacks. So that's why he was buffed on JP, and that's why you couldn't get the multiple supers on global, is what, based on how they're doing and how it works in game, that's definitely the reason why they added the extra passive line. And maybe I said that maybe it's because he didn't return. It could also be because maybe on global they want to do a maintenance, or they want to, I don't know, take some extra time and make sure they don't mess up the game by implementing it. I can't say for sure, but I would assume the fix on global is not going to come in until Rosé does return, which as of now it's in limbo. We have no idea when. For all we know, he'll return on a global at the same time GP will get his return, which could be in like December or November, which would be crazy, but because of the sync, it's gonna be.
That'd be weird that they would announce it now, though.
I mean,
and
then the reason why they announced it now is because JP.
Yeah,
that's fair. And obviously the sync shenanigans.
So then it's going to be a thing of, oh, we know if JP gets in, we don't say anything about it, people are going to get really mad. So we might as well say we do have it planned in the future so that they at least have the official announcement statement there.
Yeah, true.
Now, I think that it's likely that they'll implement it ahead of time, or they'll find a way to, maybe what they'll do is they'll give Global the weekend Dokkan Fest banner. Like, let's say, in August or during the anniversary even, that has Rosé feature that JP has right now, and then they fix Rosé when that banner comes out. That way they could technically return them, And they could also allow the fix to go through because he's available on this banner, but people who do have him, we could put the fix in, right?
That's the thing is though, that's
he is better in JP right now because he is actually getting the second super attack that's guaranteed, that's intended.
Listen, this is just our retribution for Fizz Goku Black, the OG one never getting buffed. That's really what that's really what this is all about.
Good enough. We could also talk about.
Oh yeah, I should have got his arc because
we do know that his Super Easy is upcoming.
Oh, true. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, I will say in regards to the final thing about the whole thing with the buff. By the way, I just wanted to mention too. I do think it is kind of ironic and like sort of funny in a way. It really does like tell me like it's not like a good thing to say, but it's just the truth from the evidence that's there. Is that they really do just prioritize JP over global and everything. Because I think the funny thing about this when it comes to this whole thing with Goku Black 2 is that like they are pretty well pretty well known for when JP will get some kind of bug. It will just end up on global.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, like, not all the time. Sometimes
not all the time, but a lot of the time, right? There is
grade 8 bug that ended up being a global anyway.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Where you could die in the grade 8 part.
Right. Like there's a lot of bugs that are just like on JP or like things that they already fixed on JP that when they bring them over to global, they still like the not updated thing or the glitched version of it. And so
luckily it's kind of different now because like
but here's the thing that I think is funny though. I think it's funny because it's the opposite where global had an issue and then before it even landed on JP, it was fixed.
Yeah.
And it's still not fixed on global and they're still planning on updating it.
Well, this is what I was going to say, right? It's like
that's just such salt in the wound.
Yeah, because that's
just really silly.
He doesn't have to come back on a
It's just very silly. I think it sucks, honestly.
Someone in chat said the one super doesn't change that much to get triggered. I think the one super is very beneficial because again, we have to note the guaranteed additional supers are always going to be the last few attacks you do. So because of that guaranteed additional super, you're going to end up getting another 30 mil attack set super attack and another like 300k defense.
Yep.
Especially if you have support, it could even be higher.
Yep.
Right? I mean, Truth posted a clip earlier. Well, because of the guaranteed additional super attack, he did a 29 mil attack stat and was like under 3 mil defense. Then he did a 34 mil attack stat that's super effective, and he jumped over 4 million defense.
Yep.
Right? So the extra super attack adds a lot, and it'll give you a lot of extra damage to this Rosé, and that matters, right? It is a pretty big change getting a guaranteed additional super, especially with how his passive is operating. But yeah, someone else in chat was saying this week's of tech hit. Yeah, it does because tech hit came out. Tech hits was also like kind of an underwhelming release, and then he later came out on JP, but JP got an extra content, then we get extra free-to-play character awakenings, a part 2 with LRK and Caulifla, and then it's like, oh, Tech Hit was so much of a better release than JP, and it almost feels like they didn't even complete the celebration. It's just I don't know. Just very odd, and I think it's to the point where they shouldn't have even pushed Rosé up, arguably, and they should have just
absolutely not
brought out some sort of like, because instead of pushing Rosé up, honestly, it might have been better if they instead just brought back Vegeta Blue and Zamasu on like some filler banner. And I know
they should have done that for sure.
It would have made people mad at the time because of the fact that, oh my goodness, we're supposed to be having a sync and they put this filler banner here. They could have returned a unit. But then people, I think, are probably more mad now with an unfinished, half-baked celebration.
Yep.
And potentially unfinished animations rather than a filler banner. I think people were more mad in this circumstance, probably. But maybe that'd be my opinion if I was a global player. I would rather choose that Rosé would release, like, as intended, with better animations at a later time, with a better banner, 7 featured, with weekend tickets, with my banner on there. You know, there's
It
like
just-
a lot of things. But I don't know, Ningen, what do you think?
it
Right?
just
maybe
makes
you would
you-
prefer that Rosé still came out early because it's still cool. in general,
Yeah,
right?
this is the thing. It just makes you wonder why they did it in the first place, right?
broken.
Because like
Ningen.
him coming out first would have
Has he been
been.
muted this whole time?
Oh, I see.
He's
I
muted
see
in
what
Discord.
happened. Yeah, I see what happened.
Bro is
Uh,
muted in Discord. That's what.
Yeah, only in Discord. I don't know why that happened last time, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
Make sure
yeah.
Discord, man.
It's quite funny actually because there's a couple of times where I've gone to speak and you guys have just talked over me, and I'm like, why are they doing that? And it's because I was muted in Discord.
Bro,
Sorry, chat. It's not our fault. Ningen mutes himself in Discord somehow.
Ow. Well, anyway,
you have to have. You know what it has to be? You have to have a hotkey, like on your
yeah.
keyboard.
Oh,
where
I
you
think
have a button
I think
that-
it's from back when we played when 5-9 played Among Us. I think I have a hotkey for muting Discord, but now I can't even remember what it is.
probably what it is. Then, yeah.
That makes sense.
You have
Anyway,
to look in Discord after we're done or something. Yeah.
Shout out to the good days.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah,
bro. I saw your lips moving. I was like, bro is saying nothing.
yeah,
Bro's
so
like this.
Rosé on global. So the big thing is, like I say, it's starting to say is it makes you wonder why they did it in the first place, because obviously Rosé is a popular character. So when it was announced that he was coming out as a global first, it was really hype, and obviously global players, you know, celebrating there's always those global shenanigans that we try our best to ignore, but when we do get a global W, we do like to celebrate. And then, yeah, you know, his animations weren't the best. His kit is a little bit weird. But as someone who pulled him and has been trying him out on the different builds and stuff, I really like him. I think he's underrated. I've used him in all the content that's come out since his release. And obviously, apart from Kid Buu, as we talked about last week, who like hard counters him almost completely, he's still been really fun to use in like all the content. But then, yeah, it makes you wonder, like I say, why did they drop him as a global first? Because the main theory would be that in order to help build up towards the sync, because they didn't drop him in the place of something else. He came out between like two celebrations that we already knew we were going to get, which I think was it Trunks and then Piccolo and Gohan, or was it someone after Trunks? I think it was the androids and then Piccolo and Gohan. So he just kind of like slotted in between them. And then that creates that really good opportunity that then at some point in the future, JP has to get Rosé instead of getting something that pulls them further ahead of global. And then, of course, we come around to this time when JP is going to get Rosé, and then they just get him with a bunch of extra stuff that wasn't on global, which means that we didn't really make much progress in getting closer to the point where the games have all of the same stuff, which... Yeah, like the Tech Hit thing is a perfect example. Tech Hit came out as a global first. I think it was it the first time they did that, and then Kaioken Goku was after him, I think. Because I think they stopped doing that very quickly, where it was like the global exclusive Christmas, like global first. But then the unit would always come out later on JP and get a bunch of extra stuff. So it just makes you wonder why they did it in the first place if it wasn't really working towards this wider goal of getting the games closer together. Now, obviously, they did stuff like dropping Trunks on the Frieza banner means that Trunks basically did come out on both versions at the same time, right? It was off by 1 day, which is, it's not the biggest deal in the world. But of course, there's the fact that with the format of the celebration, the way it is on JP, we would be expecting a part 2 LR, which obviously Global did not get. There's a bunch of other stuff in the celebration. I know we mentioned him a minute ago, so we'll probably talk about that in a little bit. The fact that we've got the potential physical Goku Black Super Easy A. And for Global, we kind of know, and if we go by the last couple of years' schedule, we got Frieza in this time slot, which was expected if they weren't going to do anything out of the ordinary, which then means that the next release on Global right before the anniversary should be the LR Ginyu Force, which means if Rosé gets a part 2 LR and it doesn't drop on both versions at the same time, then Rosé's celebration on the whole really didn't do anything at all in order to get the two versions closer to being synced, because it came out with a bunch of extra content, which is just, I don't know, it seems like a very weird choice to me. And then the other thing I was trying to say before, just quickly, is the buff for Rosé not coming out on Global straight away is super annoying. I'm glad they mentioned it in the news rather than not saying anything, but I'm hoping that they will just do the update sooner rather than later, like within the next week or two, or at least hopefully before the anniversary, because even if he's not going to come back on a banner, like, because he probably won't, obviously they never really change any of the anniversary lineup stuff, so realistically he's not going to come back on global until the first banner after the anniversary. But those of us who've already got him, like, I want him to get the buff because I want to use him in the anniversary content and stuff. So even if he's not going to be on another banner, they should do his fix as soon as possible, because then for those of us who've already got him, then we get him buffed, which is obviously what we want at the end of the day. So very confusing situation. I can understand why a lot of global players would be annoyed. But yeah, the sync, I think people have, I'm sure we could discuss that a bit more at some point as well in this episode, but I see a lot of people's sort of faith in the sync and the way it's been handled has definitely started to go downhill in the last like few weeks or so. So
yeah, I mean, it just feels like they didn't even care about the sync, and this whole sync thing is just a huge mess because they realistically did nothing for the sync in the first place. Almost like at most Rosé was put there, and then we're like, oh, okay, here's signs they're finally doing things, and then nothing else has changed in the slightest. And again, it's also a thing where Rosé came out on JP, and then we have literal like genuine extra content. I'll read out everything that's like extra on JP. We have the Resurrection F story events. We have the super easy physical Goku Black incoming, right? Which is, you know, with the whole part to LR. You know, I think that's actually, oh yeah, there's something that, to be fair, couldn't come to global. We have a new stage for the hit domain event, which is like kind of like an introduction to domains.
Yep.
But stage 2 is being added, which is interesting. So it could actually be a genuine difficult fight we're getting. And if that's the case, then we're also getting difficult content during the Rosé celebration, right? And then obviously there's everything in part 2 that we could be getting. Again, with the trunks, a better banner, weekend tickets. It's like kind of odd. They're just like extra stuff on the GP version of the celebration because why not? Like Rosé celebration on global, wasn't it just like he dropped and then you got like super battle stages and a burst mode? Because UI Goku burst mode is coming to GP too.
Yeah, it was just like the very bare minimum stuff, right? Like he obviously the Kefla EZA and all the Universe 6 sub EZAs came a little bit later as part of that celebration. But yeah, he was the main draw, but because he didn't have like a banner unit or anything, it's like there wasn't really a huge amount of stuff that came with him, like when he came out on global.
And I think my guess is that all the stuff that's extra will come out with the Topo celebration in August, maybe, or like wherever that celebration is going to be. I don't know. I just yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how things will turn out. But again, talking about Rosé again, I use him in a couple of typical content. On the red side, he's definitely a lot better again with the buff because the extra additional super is pretty huge. I found though the issue with Rosé again is two things. He does not have a consistent path for rainbow orbs, because even if I run like Gogeta Blue on the team, like it's Rosé is still going to be like floating around the other rotation, or sometimes like if you're floating Rosé and Gogeta around, like you're not going to get his rainbow orbs anyways, or it's like you're not going to run a good rotation of the Gogeta and Rosé, and then it's just like really weird because if like Broly and Rosé get together, they don't really share that well links. Super Saiyan, well, they do share some links. It's just that Rosé wants bad bosses really badly. It's like there's link issues, there's issues with him getting the rainbow key spheres, and you have to build super bosses for the most part of your team. You have 2 slots that are free, but then one of them has to be like a rainbow orb changer, and then otherwise is like maybe you want to run a support character or something like that. I guess you could also throw Beast Gohan to the team, but it's just really weird. And then it's like, oh, if you use the domain with Rosé, you are like Broly. Broly's fine when he's pre-transformed, like he's good. But when his intro runs out, you feel the intro is gone. Because especially key-wise, you feel that his like, I think he has like 6 key in his intro for the 5 turns or 4 turns. You feel that it's gone, and he loses damage and defense. and then you also technically lose out on like probably still the hardest hitting character in the game, right? And then Rosé becomes better, a lot better, but then I feel like you just have to sacrifice so much of the team to where it's like, is it even worth the losses you incur to transform Rosé? So then probably not. And then you keep Rosé untransformed, and then he's like a decent character. I wouldn't say he's great. So that's the issue with this boy. I don't know why he did not Rainbow Orb change in his base form. I think it's absolutely stupid that he doesn't. Like, it's even with the Super Boss's restriction, I'd be okay with it if he also had his own Rainbow Orb changing, but you also have to bring a separate Orb changer because Super Bosses doesn't really have, you know?
Yeah, that's why
there's just a lot.
That's like we said, his banner unit needed to be a Super Boss's character that Rainbow Orb changed. Like, but yeah.
And then it's a thing where you even have things line up your way, and then you could do super, normal, super. And it's like still fine, but still not great, you know, because of the fact that you could have RNG screw you over.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he might not even be able to live supers if you don't get the greatest RNG with you. It's just yeah, I don't know. I have seen clips though, again, where I saw this guy like on rotation with Broly Trio. Broly Trio was in slot 1, gave him 10% extra damage reduction, and then this Rosé has 40% reduction in his base form. And he has like, you know, still closing in on 1.5 mil, even potentially 2 mil sometimes defense. I think Dokkan has its camera cut out, or Dokkan has its dropped. Dokkan has it's gone, chat. Oh, that's unfortunate. Maybe his internet cut out. I don't know. This is a very funny stream so far.
It's always the
still
technical difficulties.
Yeah, I just like, you know, Rosé could look good. You could dress him up and make him look pretty, but I think there's a lot of things that you need to do, and it's just like the demands don't meet the rewards enough for me to consider. I think it's still good rewards, and like, you know, I've seen screenshots of Rosé, like they had a Rosé rotation, and then with the Rosé rotation, that person one turned the tech phase of the Gogeta Blue fight, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I looked at the team and I'm like, oh, he's dead next rotation. You know? Against the AoE with Gogeta Blue and his 3.6 mil super. Because it's like, oh, Broly can't transform, and it's shenanigans. Yeah, but at least he is like a good damage dealer. Sure, I'll give him that. He can do good damage, right?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Like I say, I feel
like I just like grabbed into him.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like we said, I've said from the start, right? Like I've always enjoyed using him. I do defend the physical Rosé a fair bit, but I mean, he definitely raised some good points. I think a lot of the thing when it comes to people who do enjoy using him is obviously, as we talked about in the past, like a lot of people have their different standards for, you know, a lot of people like to use units that they just like, or that are fun characters that they like and stuff like that. So I think Rosé is one of those characters that he is very much usable, but like you said, with a lot of the time you kind of have to jump through hoops to make him look his best on a certain team build, which I mean you can do, and he is certainly still usable, but you of course have other options for some of these teams where you don't have to, you know, just like with the Frieza, right? You don't have to build a whole team around them. You could just bring some of these other units instead. But I mean, for people who like Rosé, people as a character, or people who do like the unit, like he certainly is still a very usable character. But yeah, he's it is always a shame, because those characters that can be RNG related can always it can always be disappointing when the RNG doesn't go your way, right? Like you said, even when you do pick up a bunch of rainbow orbs and then he just does a load of like normal attacks, then it's not as good. But he can still be fun. I still like him, but yeah. Theo's
there
back.
We go. Hello. Bro, literally I was sitting here and all of a sudden my PC black screen. I was like, huh? Yeah, no, I think we're good now.
All right. But yeah, I mean, he's all right. I like him. We'll try him out. Hopefully he gets his buff for global sooner rather than later, because like I say, for everybody who does already have him, it would be nice for us to be able to have that buffed version before he does come back on a banner again. But we will see, I guess.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I would say, again, I really ragged on Rosé and drilled into him, and like the polls kind of poke into him, and maybe people would be like, "Oh my god, you're such a hater! You hated on this Rosé since day one," blah 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 blah. But it's a thing where I do, because I see everyone knows about the goods for the character, so I want to discuss about the things where he doesn't meet my expectations, but he's still a good character. Like, he's not bad. He's definitely good. He's definitely runnable. You could use him in the most difficult content in the game, and you could run with him on the team 100%. I just feel like, compared to other characters, they have an easier time, or they carry the team in a more meaningful way, is what I would say at the end of the day. But, there is the hope for the domain update to help this guy out. And then if the domain update really goes into effect, then we could have like a rotation of this guy in slot 2. And then we have the Tech Fusion Zamasu Immortal in slot 1, right? And then if you think about it, the Tech Fusion Zamasu will give him 60% defense support, which would add quite a bit to his numbers. Then you could have like Broly's domain, and Broly will be transformed. And then one of the big issues is that you can't transform Rosé and Broly. You have to pick one or the other, and you're always going to pick Broly. And with the additional super that Rosé is going to be getting, he gets tons of extra defense, which would interact really well with the Zamasu support. So we just have to wait for that. And we could also hope that physical Goku Black's Super EZA, what they need to make it so that Rainbow Orb changes. If there's a Super Boss Outline rotation, I'd be good with that. Or it's just free Rainbow Orb changing, because right now he Rainbow Orb changes with the what's it face? He does Rainbow Orb change with a Goku family enemy, but make it so that it's with the Super Boss's ally. Even like, it sounds bad, but it's a thing where his partners are Super Bosses anyways.
Yeah.
Or just make it free. Making it free too, and then ideally he could also be a slot 1 character. I think for the team would be really nice, because he has to receive hits anyways to build up that key on GP and Global 2. So make him have guard and then like 30% reduction in slot 1. We've seen Gotenks gets 30% reduction. No, he gets 50% reduction and 50% dodge. We've seen Super Saiyan 3 Goku get dodge. Kid Buu got 60% reduction. I don't think it's impossible to consider getting some sort of ability where he has guard and damage reduction. Like, I think that'd be great. Make him get multiplicative stats being built up in slot 1, and then he could cook, right? And those could be a really good rotation together. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Nah, I'm a Rosé hater, so I'm right there with you.
There you go.
I hate Rosé. I hate Miss Rosé. But
maybe the part 2 the Super Boss's character that could help him. Who knows?
That would be good. I would hope so. I mean, I feel like the problem is that, ironically enough, that sort of echoes what Nano said in kind of the same relation to this, but also sort of not really. It always feels like we say this when a character comes out. It's like, oh yeah, all they need is just a unit to release, and then they'll get some help, and that just never happens, right? To the vein of like, I feel like we say that all the time in Dokkan. Oh well, if they just do this, then this whole thing will be fixed, and they never do. So,
well, that's the thing I brought up earlier. I'm like, I think this year they've been really good at making these teams supported, because again, we saw that with Topo, we saw that with superheroes. Super Bosses is getting a lot of EZAs and upgrades to the team. I think that the Majin Buu Saga team is incredible right now. So they have been doing quite well there. They just need to add a little more to Super Bosses and for Rosé. And then obviously Frieza as well. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think at this point, like, it's so sad to say, but I just don't have faith. I just don't have faith in them that, like, they'll do it. Not to mention with, I mean, obviously how they've been handling the sync is a little bit different, but I feel like we just say that all the time for the villains, and then it never happens. Like, even Broly is still, obviously Broly's, like, fine on his own, but the whole thing of, like, obviously his team is, unless you're running him under Gohan B's team, but, his own team is kind of like, yikes. So, but anyway, either way, though, I believe that is probably everything in terms of Rosé himself. I know that Minato, you did mention a little bit of the content. So I don't really think we have anything else on the content front for JP. I think the only other thing that would kind of relate is the whole thing with Battlefield, right?
Yeah, so there's one thing we could talk about. Global is getting the Battlefield bosses that came out on GP last month. So Global is like skipping all these battlefields, and this is funny because you guys got the Goku, no, not the Goku, like the Evolution Blue Vegeta. That battlefield is actually like only 4 months old on GP. I keep messing up Global, and Global is getting a change from that battlefield to the battlefield that's on GP currently, or at least it should be next Monday. So in literally like 2 days, Global's going to be getting the new bosses. That's crazy because that means Evolution Blue Vegeta in global history is the shortest battlefield boss ever, only lasting 4 months, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And again, this battlefield came out, and it wasn't even in April. It was at the end of April, May, basically. Last month, Battlefield was when it reset for GP. And Global's getting these bosses with like Metal Cooler, Garlic Jr., Kid Gohan. And it's funny because this Battlefield did get buffed for the recent one in GP. I don't know if Global's going to get the buffed one. But this Battlefield is actually kind of tough.
I hated this one, bro.
Yeah, this last Battlefield was actually like I almost lost in this Battlefield right here. It was so I have to pay more attention next time and actually like not like mess around with the teams that I'm using, or like I could save this better unit later on because these fights are tough. No, they were actually pretty tough. You could stun and steal though, which was my thank goodness. If I couldn't, I would be toast. But yeah. So again, the biggest issue there is the missing points, right? Global's caught up with GP in terms of Battlefield, basically, but then there's also the point where we skipped like 4 or 5 months of Battlefield points currency, so now it's a thing of they added like a bunch of stuff at a very short amount of time that would it literally will be impossible for Global to buy. Because even on JP. I have struggles buying everything.
I was gonna say, because I wonder, because now that we have skipped a few to like catch up, I wonder if they. I mean, I wonder. I would assume probably not, but I wonder if they have actually calculated like exactly how that's going to work out. Because I think one of the things that we talked about a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about all the Buu Saga stuff was obviously the fact that JP got the EZA for Barbady and Doria. And Global is going to be getting that on Monday with this new Battlefield reset. But I'm somebody that obviously, like with the box that I have and everything, I've never really had trouble completing Battlefield. So from the very first Battlefield, I have been able to complete it like all the way through. So I pretty much have, I mean, there's probably been 1 or 2 weeks where I've missed a couple of those weekly reset missions that give you a couple of 1,000 extra ones or something. But for the most part, I would say that I probably have like close to the maximum Battlefield points that you could have on Global. And if I buy, because I never bothered to get them, because obviously pre-EZA they weren't very good. If I get those copies of Barbady and Doria to rainbow them for when their EZA comes out on Monday, I basically have no points left. Like I pretty much am out of points. So then, when the next one gets an EZA, whenever that will be, or when the next copy of like the Frieza and Cell comes out or whatever, I might not even be able to get them, which is crazy because, like I say, I haven't skipped any of the Battlefields. I've not bought a lot of the random stuff that's in the shop as well. I think we said that previous time. Like I've never bought that physical Majin Vegeta and STR Super Saiyan 2 Goku. So there's like cards in there that I haven't even bought, and I'm running low on the Battlefield points if I buy those extra copies of the LR. So it's they should have, if they're going to skip that many, they should have just done like, I don't know, just do like a special bonus one where we're getting like, triple or quadruple the points or something for that one.
The mega Battlefield.
Yeah, something like that, right? But
yeah. I mean, I think at least with this, right, with the, this also kind of plays into the sync shenanigans, of course, but I feel like for this one, right, it's not as bad because literally all they have to do is now just run the battlefields that it would have come before this one, like afterward. Or just like, I don't know, because obviously it's like there were still a couple with not the new bosses. They could just go back and forth between them, or I guess they could just like have the same amount of battlefields, but then just run the same bosses over and over. I think that it's at least a little bit easier to tackle for this, because as long as they just have the same number of battlefields, right, that JP had, then I think they'll be fine, because obviously the problem, like you said, is the currency, or if they just have one that's like a big one that just gives a bunch of extra currency to catch up, then that will be fine. Because I think that's one of the only things that's like a little bit hard for the sync to happen, right? Like with the content and the characters, it's a little bit easier, but for stuff where like it's like months at a time you're going without one, or like weeks at a time without one, that's the real difficult one. Like World Tournament is a good example of that too. It's like, how do you, just like skip like 10 world tournaments just to catch up or whatever? Do you just cram it all into one and then give extra awards, or do you just like say screw it and that's the thing that won't be synced? So it's a little bit of a tricky one, but I feel like with Battlefield at least it's a little bit easier because they have some options as to stuff they can do. So but I think even though it does kind of stink that there's obviously not as much currency right now, I think it's definitely better that this character has their EZA sooner rather than later, because I think we even talked about this on a previous episode. It's like a lot of the time when these Battlefield EZAs come to global, they're basically irrelevant by that time because they've already aged out so much.
Yeah.
That it's like by the time they hit global, you may as well not even use them. So I'm glad that on that front at least that he's coming to global early, because then he'll actually be able to get some usage, because they're pretty decent from what I remember when we talked about them too.
Yeah, they're pretty decent. Right? I think that they're definitely usable.
So I'm glad.
In difficult content. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they have debuffs and stuff, which I just want to say I'm so glad Dokkan made debuffs relevant again. It's so nice that these effects actually have meaning. Again, it's not really a thing on global too much. You really only have the Kid Buu fight that could benefit from that. But I'm telling you, take advantage of your debuffs, lowering attack, stuff like that when those events come to JP.
Yeah, those debuffs can be crazy, because like I remember I put a video up of it. We did a challenge run on one of the streams that I did the other day where someone wanted me to try and use Earthlings against Kid Buu, and I had a team with like characters like Launch and STR Krillin and Bulma and stuff like that, and you get to the point where, because like almost everyone on the team is lowering his attack, like he just can't really do damage to anyone outside of a super. And unfortunately the run ended with Yamcha not dodging a super and taking like 3 million damage, but his normals and stuff were nerfed so much that like that team was, it takes quite a while as well, because obviously with him healing and the team not doing like insane damage, but the debuffs are so good in that event that like, had I dodged that super attack, I potentially was going to go on to win that run with Earthlings of all things, right? So debuffs are definitely very, very good. I guess I kind of like that, because we've talked about power creep a lot in the past and like what they're going to do to offset that, because as bosses start to hit harder and harder, so making attack lowering become kind of relevant again is, I guess, one way they can address it, which is quite good. So
there's certain bosses where you could stun or seal, like Somax, right? Which I think giving stunning and sealing abilities could be a little dangerous and making the boss too easy. But like, let's say like Somax, where it's a thing where the first 3 turns he can't be debuffed, but then over the fight he loses those abilities. Or it's a thing where it's like the Beerus fight, where I don't know, for this Beerus fight he disables dodge. Then when you pop a domain ability, his territory skill goes down and he no longer cancels your dodge and gets the attack buff. But like, it could be a thing where you use the domain effect and then now he could be debuffed or stunned during the time that your domain is up and his territory skill is down, right? That's the kind of effects that territory skills and domains could provide and make more interesting fights. So I think that they've done a great job at the fights this year. Like, it's like 3 times as better as last year, bare minimum. And global, you're about to experience the big bulk of that next month, basically, in July. So that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely can't wait for that. That's one of the big things, because that's the thing, we all talk about like the wait for the anniversary for Global, because largely centered around how hyped people are for the anniversary characters. But yeah, it's the sheer amount of content that comes with the anniversary as well. Is something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Because I guess on that note, one of the things that we hadn't mentioned, it's not really going to be much of a long topic because it's only the first 2 stages and they're both pretty easy. But Global finally getting the Movie Bosses 2 Red Zone as well.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, it came out on JP with Dragon Fist, Goku, and Hirudegarn, and then didn't come out with them on Global. But I guess obviously the reason for that is because they purposely spread out the release of the stages so that the last 2 stages, Golden Frieza and Beerus, came out at the beginning of the anniversary. So if they'd started dropping the stages with Dragon Fist, Goku, and Hirudegarn, there would have then been a massive gap between like the last stages coming out. So they've obviously timed it so that it is releasing in that exact same sort of increments that then we'll get to the anniversary and the last couple of stages come out. So we got the first 2 on Global today, Tao and Dr. Wheelo. Tao, I didn't realize, because I like to jump into them at least the first time without having looked into them in great detail or anything ahead of time. I didn't realize Tao was only 1 phase, so he just got he got absolutely destroyed. I used the Heroes team to do both, of course. Shout out to Heroes.
That makes sense.
And then Wheelo. See, Wheelo one's cool. He's got the kind of format that I like, where it's like multiple enemies in the first phase that aren't particularly hard, then a second phase, and then the third phase does like an AoE.
Boss, I forgot.
Yeah, the third one does an AoE, but his AoE
it's the same as Fusion Zamasu.
Yeah, it doesn't hit as hard as Zamasu. It's like
no, it is phase 500k.
Is it? Oh, okay.
But it's because you're able to build up by that point.
I was going to say, I think Fu must have just been cooking on that turn, because he didn't dodge the AoE. And when I saw the amount of damage he took, I was like, oh, he'd take more from Zamasu, I'm fairly sure. But maybe I was mistaken. I think he did have Big Bad Bosses actually active, so maybe that's why.
I mean, yeah, Fu can get some pretty decent starter turn defenses, but he gets most of them on Super.
On Super. But he did have Big Bad Bosses active, which I'm not used to him having, because a lot of the time if I throw him on a team, he's not
double check here
having that up. But
so
yeah, neither stage.
Actually, no, I did.
Hard.
Oh no, I am wrong. Reload AoEs is 400k.
Okay, so it is a bit less than Zamasu.
Oh, that was 500k. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But anyways, I think that an AoE boss that was funny, because I came out and I was like, oh god, I'm scared. There's another int AoE boss. No. But then they just had to get the last one out of the way before the amazing bosses that came out after. So that's okay.
Well, I think even I remember when they were coming out on JP, I don't think I actually did play the Broly or Bio Broly one, but I think the Hirudegarn stage was kind of fun. Not exactly like, crazy hard or anything, but just like a fun stage. So looking forward to the rest of those coming out on Global. But yeah, we got those today. I think we also got the we got the LR Team Bardock Easy A. I forgot all about them. I haven't actually even done their
I honestly forgot about them too.
I've been working on getting the LR One Piece Awakened, but they're
goated. I mean, I think when it comes to the Bardock EZA, I know that for me, these days, right, usually what I'm using Team Bardock for is that first stage of Battlefield I always use them for.
Yeah.
And then just like run a Cyberman at the end, because they'll just be like Team Bardock leader, and then STR Bardock as the, like the quote unquote sub leader or like the secondary leader or whatever. And then, it'll just be a Cyberman in the last slot. And usually, I mean, I don't think there's ever been a time where it hasn't been, but usually that's just like, all you need to be able to beat that first stage, because the first stage of Battlefield's always pretty easy. So
yeah,
it did help making that stage go by a little quicker. Like I was fighting, I think it was Guldo the other day when I did the Battlefield, and the EZA Bardock hit for like 11 mil. I was like, dang, all right, I see you. They like one shot the boss, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a shame, because I feel like that's another unit that I kind of wish would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, especially because we waited so long.
Right, it was like, and not to mention we didn't even have the rainbow copy for so long. it was like, man, they better make this like the best darn easy in the history of the game at this rate. And clearly that did not happen, unfortunately. So
it must be the longest, even compared to like Battlefield LRs with how they add them into the shop like every few months. That must be the longest unit, right, from release to actually being able to rainbow, right, the LR Team Bardock. Because I swear they've only been able to get to 90%. It's been like 3 years or something. Like,
yeah, it's been pretty ridiculous. Yeah. I thought, yeah. I don't know. That is pretty weird to think about. I mean, obviously, it's because it's like they're restricted by the game, right? Where then, obviously, like with a summonable unit, you could just summon until you rainbow them. But it's literally like the game is holding you back. Matsu himself is holding you back from getting that final copy.
Plus, it's so weird. So, like, I know Bardock obviously has ties to Frieza, and the whole like destroying Namek, destroying Planet Vegeta with the active skill and stuff like that. But like, they even released a Dokkan Fest Bardock like over a year ago, and didn't think at that time, oh, let's finally release the final copy for LR Team Bardock. And it's like, no, we'll drop it now randomly in this Frieza celebration with the AGL Bardock EZA that doesn't even come out until I think it's either next week or the week after. But the LR Team Bardock EZA is available straight away. So very strange.
And that one is Super Saiyan 2 as well. It's not even like the the moment from when he blows up the planet.
Yeah.
It's after what happens after. It's very strange. I remember even we talked about that one, I think, or maybe we didn't talk about it, the three of us, but the community talked about that when Tech Bardock came out. Everybody was like, "Oh, cool! Finally, Team Bardock EZA." And
imagine they do. That would have actually been such a great drop. Oh
well. Yeah. Plus, where's the Great 8 Bardock?
It'd be like that sometimes.
EZAs? Because those guys, I swear, those guys have been around for. I'd have to double check when they got their Team Awakening, but they've been around for years at this point. And you think that's the kind of thing, this goes back to the subject that we were saying before, right? And it isn't always just villains, but it's like when they bring out these units, and it doesn't even have to be units, it could be like EZAs and stuff, right? Where they bring out these units or EZAs or Awakenings and things like that, and then they feel incomplete because they don't have all the pieces that would give them their full potential, right? Because like that AGL Bardock EZA, he's going to come out on global, like I say, it's either next week or the week after. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that he's like the worst Dokkan Fest EZA of this year so far. And like part of his passive is that he needs low class warrior allies to be on the team. So like, why didn't they?
Yeah, EZA, who are you running with, my boy?
Like, why didn't they EZA the Team Bardock like Giant 8 units at the same time? Like, you could have done one 30-stage EZA battle or do an Extreme Z area, which would have been less good because with less stones, but just drop an EZA for all of them at the same time. And then, as long as a couple of those are good and runnable, then there's his low-class warrior allies. But instead, they give him the EZA, he has that as part of his passive, and then there's barely any low-class warrior characters that are actually runnable in the meta. So, it's very strange.
Yeah, very silly. I mean, it doesn't help that even most of the low-class warrior Dokkan Fests are either just okay or not good at best. Like, even obviously you're not going to be running like the free-to-play Team Bardock on like actual difficult content that you would maybe be able to run them on. I don't know. It just seems like such a missed opportunity. Maybe somebody at Akatsuki really doesn't like Bardock. I don't know. Maybe we got some ops Ningen at Akatsuki. I'm not really sure, but outrageous, bro. But anyway, with that being said, I think that is potentially everything that we have to talk about in terms of content that is actually in the game. Unless you guys can think of anything else. The only other thing that I was going to mention before we move on to our funny topics of the usual variety in the podcast, I was going to say, Loki, I think we should discuss a little bit the potential for a part 2 LR that will be coming with, maybe, obviously we don't know for sure.
No, it's gonna we're saying maybe it's not going to come.
Mr. Always right. All right, let us know that.
The main thing is this time slot for JP always has a part 2 LR, don't they? So it'd be weird if they didn't. I mean, it technically is possible, but the likelihood is there will be.
they're not slowing down JP for the global sync. They don't
No.
care about global. That's the truth of the matter. They just do not care about the global version. They will not slow down the game for that at all. So
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
in terms of the part 2 LR, I think that there are a couple of options, that are going to come out because it's going to come out. Let's be real. We are getting a part 2 LR. It's going to happen. And we know that there's a part 2 anyways because of the missions. It says this is part 1 of the celebration. So they'll also end a lot earlier than the Rosé banner would leave. So they don't drop sales for some filler banner on GP. They drop sales for new characters. That's how it be. Anyways, I think that it could be 2 options. Blue Vegeta, the blue Vegeta that fought against Goku Black.
I hope so.
I want that.
I think it could be Blue Goku that raged against Rosé.
Ooh,
The reason why Blue Goku is possible is, it's weird because there's this theory that I think Truth has where the part 2 LR usually ends up fitting on the leader skill, the part 1 character. Vegeta is on Exploding Rage, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
The Blue Goku is also on Exploding Rage. He would be the one that gets angry at Zamasu when he's like, "Yeah, I killed Chi-Chi and Goten. What you gonna do about it, bruh?"
Yeah.
And then another option could be a base form Goku Black, but then that would kind of mess with the Super EZA. But also they don't care, so who knows?
The problem though with that theory for the Rosé doesn't have Exploding Rage as one of his leader skills, so because he's
it's Corona Body Mind.
So.
Oh goodness, yeah. Okay, so that'd be. To be fair, Trunks is also not.
Well, yeah. That's the thing, right? So, they clearly it could
know.
just be another kid, KO and Super Boo situation, right? Where the
I don't know why I thought he was Exploding Rage.
I think Exploding Rage, is it one of his plus 30s? Yeah, it's one of his plus 30%.
Oh, it is one of his 30%. Yeah. That's why. I think that it's likely to be Super Boss's card, though. I think that makes the most sense. Another thing is we see in the table of the character IDs what it looks like, right? Is there's the 2 IDs for Frieza, 3 empty slots, then the 3 IDs for Rosé. His SSR TUR and transformed. So I think the LR is going to fit right in that spot where there's the 3 empty slots, SSR TUR LR.
Okay.
So I think because of that, it could be a Super Boss's character because there's Golden Frieza from the anniversary, and then there's Rosé, and then there's that character. So it makes sense if it's just Golden Frieza, just like how they have all the Majin Buu Saga characters together. They have all the Tobo Celebration characters together. Would make sense, or it could be Future Saga with the Goku Black. But again, it could be Kefla as well. A lot of people were like, "Oh, new Kefla art that was there."
That banner got updated with the random Kefla art.
Yeah, dude, imagine it's like, "Oh, we showed out in global. You guys found that? Too bad. We're taking it right."
Yeah.
So that's funny. It could be Kefla, and I think Kefla is definitely a very likely option, a Super Saiyan 2 LR Kefla. Base from Goku Black, again, I think it's possible as well. Maybe it could be Zamasu, like I said. Well, LR Zamasu would be kind of funny. An LR Zamasu Goku that maybe I don't know, I guess it has to be just a standalone LR because there's only those 3 slots there. Now, they could always put the LR in a different spot. But these yellow coin LRs usually don't have some sort of transformation for the most part.
Yeah.
So this card is not going to transform if it's going to fit in those 3 spots because again, a transformation would take a 4th slot if that makes sense because it's technically a different card ID in a sense.
Right.
So
honestly,
again, base Goku Black, Super Saiyan 2 Kefla, maybe Blue Vegeta, but usually the weird thing is that the part 2 LR. Final thing I want to say is the enemy that's being fought against. So last year was Turles and Goku. The year before was who came out on this spot the year before? I forgot, but I know that STR Kefla and UI Goku came out of the spots. Man, I blinked out. Hold up, wait. I know exactly what I could do. Give me 1 second. The JP timeline of events I have. Perfect. So we could take a look here right there. We had Resurrection F Blue Goku and Golden Frieza. Obviously, it was Blue Goku Vegeta. We had Garlic. We had Kid Gohan into.
I thought you were
the
gonna say
Goku-
Kid Garlic Jr. I was like, huh?
Well, it's weird because we had Kid Gohan and Garlic Jr. and then there was the Goku and Piccolo as well. So they didn't really fight against each other because that Garlic Jr. is from the anime. So it could be just related, I guess. But a lot of the times it is like, the opposing enemy is what they usually do. Even the year before, I think, was also kind of a match there. Yeah, it was Namek Goku, then Full Power Frieza the year before. So like they very, very commonly have done it. These very similar things like that. It just makes a ton of sense. So we'll see.
You know what I think would be really cool if they did decide to do a base form Goku Black. One thing that I always thought would be really cool would be like the introduction to the arc. Basically, like when you first see him, right? He comes out of the flames, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff. When you first see him too, like when he's chasing Trunks down like the alleyway or whatever too.
It would just really suck for the Super Easy A.
Yeah.
Same name.
I mean, absolutely,
like,
it would be terrible for the Super Easy A.
You could still run them on the same team. It just would be a little weird if you get them on the same rotation.
Yeah. I guess they just have to make it. If it's going to be a base Goku Black, they just make him like a really good slot 1 unit, and then the Super Easy A is more of like a floating support, I guess.
It's like they could. Yeah, I guess that could be fair, right? Like a floating Rainbow Orb Changer, Debuffer, maybe providing support to Super Bosses. I think I'd be okay with that as long as both of them aren't like a slot 2 character.
Yeah,
then that would suck.
Yeah.
Or I think that'd be fine. Or theoretically, they could also both be really good slot 1s, and then you run one in each rotation on a double Rosé team, and then that could work theoretically, right? Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it won't be the worst thing to be a base Rosé, a base Goku Black. I mean, it's just another Super Bosses character that would still fill out the roster, and he'd probably be at least like top 20. Like, I'd be fine if he's like Ultimate. Well, I want him to be better than Ultimate Gohan. Can you level?
I mean, Ultimate Gohan's still good, right? So, I mean, he's still runnable in the difficult content and everything. So,
I guess, he is. Okay. But
as long as he's usable and fun to use, I guess is the main thing, right? But, yeah.
Anything else you guys would like to see, or any guesses you all have from there?
I mean, that Vegeta is definitely one of my top picks.
I would think that would be it for like hero wise for sure.
And then I think if it was up to me to pick, it would be either that Blue Vegeta or Kefla. But obviously with it not being transforming, we have the Easy A one, so it realistically needs to be either just a Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan 2 one. And then I think regardless of who it is, right, they need to, I would ideally like them to be a Rainbow Orb Changer that is a Super Bosses unit, I suppose. I guess that kind of excludes the Vegeta a little bit, but having the Part 2
you're a
unit
Vegeta
help
fan,
out
so
Rosé. But
I mean, if they release a Vegeta, I mean, him and Blue Evolution Vegeta as a rotation could be kind of nasty. That could be one good thing that comes from it. But
dude, imagine how good that unit could be, because like we only have that old Int version, and he's the only one that has that super attack with like pummeling the enemy into the ground. Like imagine some of the bits from that scene, like where he picks up Rosé by his head and then like headbutts him and stuff like that. Like having those quality animations for a unit now, like having a new version of that Vegeta would be so good.
It is crazy because there's still quite a bit they could do with Future Saga in terms of animations, because so many of the characters came on like the first year of the game. So between like the first and the second anniversary, a majority of these characters at this point, Super Easy contenders, right? Like physical Goku Black. We could still get like so many Goku based from Goku Blacks. We can get Uzumaki, Blue Goku, Blue Vegeta, right? So that's cool. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, we barely got Fusion Zamasu and sort of Trunks and good animation, so we'll see. I mean,
what are your guys' thoughts on the? Because someone has mentioned it in the chat. I think it's been mentioned a couple of times, and obviously we did mention it briefly earlier. What do you think is the possibility that the Part 2 LR for Rosé comes out on global as well, because obviously, as we said earlier, we would be expecting Ginyu, but realistically it could be it could be a different legendary summon banner, so I don't think it's impossible. And obviously with them dropping Trunks with Frieza, it kind of shows that they want to put some of that content that's coming with Rosé on JP onto global as well. But I think it's
you could also say
it's different because it's a banner
Frieza coming out. Ginyu makes sense because Ginyu is like Frieza's like soldiers.
Yeah, because he's on his team.
I don't know.
So
yeah, I would say we have to wait and see, because if it's like Kefla, then it's like probably wouldn't come to global because it's not even related to Trunks. And the thing is that Trunks is not even related to super bosses in general.
Yeah,
like Trunks is the one character in the celebration that like stands out. Like, why are you here? Because both in the Frieza celebration, but like even though he's Future Saga in the Rosé celebration, the celebration feels more like super bosses.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Rather than Future Saga. So yeah. I'm gonna assume Ginyu would come out, and I'm not gonna be like 50-50 chance. I'm gonna say 60-40. Ginyu 60%, Part 2 LR and JP 40%. But we'll see. I mean, another thing is that like Tech Go Tanks, like they probably also want to try and bring him out. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to see. It'll be very interesting. I do kind of. Yeah.
No, go on. I got another small topic, but go on.
Oh, gotcha. I was just gonna say, honestly, I don't know. I think low-key, I feel like I might be in the camp of having this guy actually come out at the same time on both versions, especially considering the thing that happened with Trunks. It just wouldn't surprise me, considering global is a bit of a mess right now. It would just kind of like, if they're, because clearly, I don't know, the sync is like out the window at this point. I mean, obviously it's going to happen, but it's like, clearly they're just kind of doing whatever, and it doesn't really make sense. But, there is another topic that we can talk about too, actually, unless this is what you're going to say, Ningen, in a second. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely in the camp of, I think that probably my guess is that they're going to put the Part 2 LR banner out on the same time on both versions, but we will see. I was going to say, Ningen, we should talk a little bit about the couple of things that were in the producer's letter that were like the only things that were kind of new. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I suppose
because there wasn't really nothing new to be honest.
We got the only thing is like they put the Frieza event is coming out early for global, because obviously it didn't come out as part of the Frieza celebration for JP, but it is for global.
Right.
It's not actually,
which is more evidence, by the way, about all these shenanigans, because it should have just come out with Frieza. But
and then what else? It was just
it is coming up.
No, I mean on JP.
So. Yeah, I mean that's a JP shenanigan, I guess.
So they announced Frieza, which by that point we already knew because it was in the in-game news. And then they talked about the anniversary characters, which is fine. And then it was the Q&A.
The Q. I will say, honestly, if I'm gonna keep it real with you, I think the Q&A was absolute dog water. If I'm being honest, they did not cook.
Yeah, I was worried that they would just pick like a bunch of really easy questions that no one really cares about, but like they didn't even pick. I mean, some of the questions were kind of interesting, but they weren't really information that like people would, I guess, like, desperate to know, right? Like for example, they asked about like how long does it take to produce an LR, which is interesting, but it's not like something I desperately needed to know. But the funniest thing is the sync, when they said actually, I was surprised they even addressed the question that was basically like, what is going on with the sync? But then the answer was basically, we'll tell you more about it in a month. And it's like, oh, cool. We're gonna tell you some more news about it during the anniversary, and that's it. Like, okay.
An announcement for an announcement.
They always love to do that. And you know what's the worst part too? I did see Annie talking about this. I don't know if Annie's here in chat right now, but
Annie's talking about Wuthering Waves and how they
So the thing about this, I think that's like so kind of funny with this whole thing, and like especially this question being included in the producer letter, is that like Annie was absolutely right, where it was like, let me find the actual specific tweet because I quote retweeted it. Because it was like perfect for what we're talking about here. So we will sync October 2023, New Year's unsynced. We will sync during the summer and give information on the sync through Saiyan Day and Producer's Letter. Battle Hour 2024. Anniversary isn't synced. We have a roadmap for the sync, Saiyan Day. Same as JP. Sync info for 9th year. It's just like over and over, it feels like they're just kind of giving us the carrot on a stick, right? Like stringing us along, basically. Like, oh, it's coming. Oh, stay tuned. Oh. And not only does it just kind of feel like, bro, just give me the information already, please. I'm begging you, dog. Stop, be a little baby boy and, jumping around the issue. Just, give it to us straight and don't, lay it out. Or if you really wanted the 9th anniversary to be when the info was going to come out, sure, but don't string us along and be like, oh, we're going to get new information here, and here, and then nothing new comes out. Because I think the thing is, what's so funny to me sometimes about the way they do things is I feel like they think it's new information, but it's not new information to us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also just things that you can infer, right? Because it's like when they did the thing before where they were like, okay, there's going to be sync information here, but then they just showed off like the stupid timeline thing again that nobody liked. Because I remember at the fan meetup for the anniversary when Broly and Gogeta were initially announced, they showed off the timeline again, and I was like, no, don't show it off. Omotu, please, you were doing so good, bro. Because nobody liked that thing. That thing has become infamous within the community.
You know what? I thought it was underrated.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, I think the problem is just they feel like by sometimes showing the same information again or showing like little tidbits or something, it's like this whole big thing when it's like, dog, this is the most obvious thing. My pet gopher could have figured this out, bro. Like, come on. Now it's just ridiculous in the way that they like are presenting the information. They need to just say, hey, this is when the information is going to happen, or this is when the sync is going to happen, period, and then leave it at that, right? Because at this point, a lot of people are really unhappy with how things have been going. A lot of people are very have basically lost faith in Dokkan. I mean, even myself, bro, at this point, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna watch the fire burn at this point because there's no point in trying to make sense of it because clearly they either don't know what they're doing, they're not sticking to their plan, or their plan is just bad. One of the three, right? Yeah, what's up? Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to bring up. This is related to the sync, but this is also kind of related to the Part 2 LR.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing right now that what the sync technically is, Global, obviously Global got the pity for the Yellow Coin LRs earlier than JP because it was announced basically at the same time for both versions, kind of like a sync kind of thing, where Global got the pity for the Tree Man Goku banner. But because of that, and obviously Global also got it for Ribrianne, it was an extra banner. Global right now is ahead one pity. Global has an extra coin, right? Global's on coin 3 and JP's on coin 2. So there's a theory that I saw Pearlton and other people talking about, and he brought it up in the chat that reminded me that maybe there's going to be a top legendary summon soon where they put multiple new LRs on there to catch it up on Global, which would mean what if Part 2 in Global is Kefla and Ginyu together? I say Kefla, but maybe it is Kefla. Whatever the Part 2 LR is, the Part 2 LR and Ginyu together. Maybe they just squish them together. I'm not gonna be oh, they'll do that because, like you said, it makes sense, and maybe they just don't care.
That's what makes it less likely for it to happen, is because it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, so it's not happening. But it's just something I want to throw out there because Global is technically ahead by a coin, and in that situation, it would basically take away one banner again that was added. So then the next banner would be the same on both versions, right? Because of the fact that Global and GP would essentially catch up in that circumstance.
Yeah, I definitely could see it. I mean, I think that would be such an easy thing to do because it's like, as cool as those yellow coin LRs are, it's like they're not the craziest thing that people are like going nuts for. You know, obviously it's not like main appeal type units. So I definitely think that that could be possible. But yeah, either way though, you know, I think that that was like, I don't know. I kind of wish they would have, honestly, like, as weird as it is to say, because I'm sure now people are like looking forward to whenever during Ninth Annie they will talk about it. I almost wish they just wouldn't have said it during the producer letter and then just like had it happen during 9th anniversary, because now there's like another expectation and people's expectations are already at rock bottom. So like if they fumble it here again, bro, I don't know what's going to become of people's thoughts on the sync, because people are already like, you know, barely hanging on by a thread in terms of confidence. But either way though, for the rest of those questions, yeah, I know Ningen, you mentioned the one where they said, you know, how long does it take for an LR to be created? Depends on the character, but in the case of characters featuring an anniversary campaign or other big events, it takes about 8 months. I think that was interesting because I saw somebody actually mention that they actually talked about this before in a previous Q&A. So this question has already been answered before, though if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a JP only thing. So technically, quote unquote, it would be new information for Global.
Yeah. Oh yeah, wasn't it one of those fan meetup things for like the anniversary?
Yeah, yeah, I believe so. Which is kind of interesting that, you know, like, I mean, it is a good question, right? Because it is interesting to know how long they take for some of those. And I think that makes sense for like big boy characters, right? That obviously they would take that long for the animations and the kit or something. But, you know, and then obviously I assume that would also include like worldwide and stuff like that. But dang, that Vegito 12 key certainly didn't take 8 months. That's all I'm saying. But anyway.
I mean, maybe they don't mean each LR individually.
No, I know. I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, it's like I said though.
But anyway,
it took us 7 months to make that 12 key for Vegito.
Yikes.
Yeah, like we said, it's like it's a question that's like it's interesting to know that, but it's not the kind of question I think that people would necessarily have preferred, like when it comes to actually getting information about the sync or like mechanics that people want to be updated, or like people asking about events and like chain battle and all this, you know, and things like that. I think are the important information about the game, like questions that come up quite a lot, is I think the kind of thing people were more hoping for, whereas stuff like that is interesting to know the answers to those questions, but they're not like the burning questions that people necessarily wanted answered. So I feel like they probably picked,
I think,
some of those just more fun ones on purpose, right? Like
right, because then they didn't have to tackle the burning questions, because it's like, I feel like it kind of depends on the context of the like wherever the questions are being answered, right? Because the thing like the fan meetup, I think they do a good job of answering a mix of like important burning questions that people have and like frequently asked questions, but then also stuff that's almost more like Dokkan dev trivia, I think would almost be like what to equate it to, right? Like where it's like, you know, oh, it takes 8 months to make a character, you know, like that's something cool. But I feel like when it comes to a producer letter, right, which is supposed to be like, you know, obviously the game devs giving you the new update, you know, on the game from the the game developers like perspective, and not to mention, right, with only there being 4 questions in the producer letter as well, right? Like maybe if there was like 10 questions, like sure, then they could have, you know, like thrown that question in there. It would have felt a little bit more justified. But with there only being 4 questions as a producer letter, and again, it's supposed to be like an informational thing rather than like, you know, oh, here's some fun info. It's supposed to be like game updates and stuff. I feel like that's kind of you know, it's sort of like a time and place type of thing, I think is the best way to think about it, for when these type of questions should be answered, right? Because the other questions, I feel like the third one was also kind of in the same vein, although it is probably a little bit more of a frequently asked question. And I feel like the fourth question was fine because it kind of relates to the whole anniversary. Because the third question was, you know, are we going to get more Dokkan original characters like Broly and Trunks? Which is like, that's something that a lot of people have been asking recently, because obviously with Broly and Trunks coming out, it's like, all right, well, you know, is this because it's just going to be a one and done thing? Or are we going to be getting more versions of these characters? So, like, I feel like that's kind of an in-between one because it has been so frequently asked. But I feel like that could almost be little bit more into the
I thought that question
side.
was kind of funny as well, though, because it's like you said, is some of the stuff that they tell us in the producer layer is not news to, like, everyone.
Right.
And, like, you know, we mentioned that roadmap thing. I mean, they already showed in the roadmaps that we've seen that coming up soon, I think for JP, is you guys are going to be getting the next, like, farmable character from the quest mode, which is where we got Broly and Trunks from. So even though that doesn't necessarily mean that that character is going to be another Dokkan original like they were, I think most people are kind of assuming it will be. So that's another example of them kind of answering a question that we kind of already knew,
that we knew the answer to.
Funny enough, one thing is Global accidentally put the next preview for the story mode in the data early, if you guys didn't see, and we see the next part of the story is
I don't think
Frieza.
So, actually.
No, well, it's in the data. Prototype posted about it.
Yeah, I don't think I saw the post. I mean,
oh, I see. Yeah, but it's Frieza, King Cold, and Cooler. Like, obviously the SSR arcs that exist in the game, but the previews about those three characters, you know, and Global and JP are on the same area right now in terms of the story. So obviously the next area is something JP has yet to get, but we know JP is getting the next area and the next SSR of the story mode in June, which is this next upcoming month, basically. So we'll see. I think it's going to be Frieza and Cooler.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that's something.
I mean, a lot of people were like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I want this to be like summonable," but it could still be a good card.
Yeah,
so
it could. I mean, Broly and Trunks are fantastic, so I think they could definitely still be good. But I think too, I almost wonder if part of this, right, like part of this whole thing, with like these questions that seem like they've been answered before, or it's like something that could be inferenced. Some of it is definitely just like general inferencing, right? Like the thing with you know, like the like we're just talking about with like obviously JP's gonna get another Dokkan original if they're going down the same path with the quest mode. But I almost kind of feel like sometimes it's the type of thing where it's like, I guess they're maybe orienting. See, I feel like they're kind of going about it the wrong way, because it feels like they're orienting the producer letter to be more for like the casual Dokkan audience. Whereas I feel like that doesn't make it as much sense, because it's like they're sort of orienting it to be like, oh, the people who only play Global and don't know anything about JP are who's going to be reading this. But like, funny enough, talking about this point too, the fourth question, right? Do you have plans to continue the game post 10th anniversary? They already talked about that at the Q&A when they were like, yeah, we have everything scheduled up until the 10th anniversary, right, in terms of like what characters we're going to do. And then they also said the game will be continuing far past the 10th anniversary. So this is another question that has already been answered, and was answered on the JP side. So it kind of feels like to me that like the way that they're formatting this is that it's like, oh, people who don't pay attention to all the information possible are the people who are going to read this, like the more casual people. You know, we always talk about like we feel like we're kind of like the majority in the community, when realistically there's a lot of people out there that just see a Dragon Ball game on their phone and download it, you know, off of the App Store or whatever. And then, you know, that's that, right? They're not like as obviously like in deep as we are. But I feel like the producer letter, the type of people who are looking at the producer letter are not those people. You know, the type of people for the most part are the people who are following them on Twitter and who are a little bit more in the nitty gritty, right? Because obviously they post it on Twitter. Like that's the main place they post. I think they also post on Instagram too. But it's kind of like, it's such a weird thing to me, because the people, most of the people I would think, or at least a good majority of the people who are looking at the producer letter are the people who would already know that information. So I would think even more to your point, Ningen, of like, the the whole thing of like they're basically giving us answers that we already know the answers to. I feel like that even applies even more, because it's like, well, the people who are looking at this information are the people who already know the answers to these questions. So why at that rate would they not just give us more like global specific info of like actual updates of like what's coming to the game and like how the sync is going to be handled, then like future plans and stuff like that. That's like stuff that is already just like they've never said it before, or it specifically pertains to the global that they haven't shared. I don't know. It just seems like a very weird to present it.
Is that if they did get those questions, and it's likely that a lot of people asked about them. And again, like you said, we don't.
That's
like
true.
Dokkan has so many followers that probably like don't even look again are super active to the community and like that. So maybe they watch some YouTube videos or something like that, right? So I just think that the questions, maybe you could argue they're curated, someone in chat said, but I feel like the questions weren't like bad to answer regardless, and they want to save the big information during the anniversary, which kind of they alluded to. So I'm like, sure, it's better. I'm gonna look at it as a glass half full. Better to have some of this information than to not have it. Not that we needed it and we have to wait a little longer, but we're gonna get the information. We're gonna get the actual information about the sync and stuff during the anniversary anyways, and we're gonna get that guaranteed. But some of this information we weren't gonna get otherwise. So I'm gonna look at it as a thing of it's still something as an overall net gain, even though we have to wait a little longer for the information we truly want. It's nice to have this extra stuff.
Yeah. I'd agree with
so that I think I'm gonna look at it as a positive way. I know it's kind of funny that the producer's letter didn't really have anything there, but this is just me, like my opinion, right?
Yeah, I got you. I mean, I think the thing that was just the most disappointing is like I read through everything, and I was basically like, so no new information. Got it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I was just like disappointed that there wasn't like really anything that was like brand new info. I think was kind of just my disappointment, especially with it doesn't help that we always do this, but I guess this is just human nature, right? That we always hype up everything so much, and then we let ourselves down because it doesn't reach the level of hype that we've built up for ourselves. It happens every time. Classic Dokkan player moment right there. But anyway, so I don't know. I hope that my only hope, right, is that during the anniversary we do actually get like proper sync information, right? Like it's none of this wishy-washy nonsense that they've been giving us this whole time. I'm really hoping that it's just, all right, here's when, this is going to be synced, and here's when this is going to be synced.
Yep.
And that's that, right? Because I know people have been saying something interesting recently that I think is true. It's like, it kind of seems like that when they said the sync was going to happen, they meant that like the characters were going to be synced, but not necessarily all the events were going to be synced.
Because it's realistically
kind of some stuff along those lines.
The way they've announced it, it's more so that like if you look at the wording specifically and everything, it's like the release schedule will be synced. So all it means is when they've like pressed the button and said, okay, they're now synced. All it means is all the new units coming out. So this is the big thing I've seen a lot of people commenting on, is obviously the fact that, as Truth has been saying for ages now, is that we might get to the point where they say, okay, the games are synced now, but global is still missing some of the stuff that's on JP. And all it means is that every time something new comes out, it comes out on both versions at the same time. And then potentially it takes global until actually the end of the year, where they drop a few things in, kind of like they did with Rosé, where he was in between celebrations. And then by the end of the year, we're actually finally caught up. And then everything is actually synced and completely the same from the beginning of next year. But the sync itself, it does only really specifically refer to the release schedule. So, which again, it comes back to exactly what we've been saying, is the communication on the whole thing has just not been clear enough. It just reminds me of exactly when all the version Z stuff was going on and people thought it was going to be this massive game-changing update, and when they brought out the very first part of it, it was like very minimal, because they just didn't really communicate exactly what it was going to be clearly enough. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we find out more info, because technically, remember, the anniversary for Global, it starts in July, which is technically summer, right? And all they've said about the sync is that it's summer 2024. So hopefully we'll get some more information. Obviously, we're kind of all assuming it's going to be post worldwide, which I still think is the case. But yeah, hopefully we'll get a bit more clear information. I imagine it's probably going to be something that doesn't come out until like the end of the anniversary, though. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping it's towards the beginning, but obviously it's just like whenever it happens at that, right? You know. So we'll see on that front. But yeah, I'm right there with you though. I do definitely think that it'll probably be the like worldwide will be when the characters are all caught up, because I feel like that would make the most sense if they could you know, throw out a bunch of you know, the stuff that Global still needs before the anniversary starts. And obviously, like with these yellow coin LRs like we're talking about, they could definitely just cram them in early. And not to mention, low-key, to be honest with you, the final thing I'll say in regards to that is, if they do bring out the yellow coin LRs early, right, and put them on like some kind of like, you know, banner with a bunch of them on it, that's honestly better for Global, because then that means that you can pull those units while you're doing your anniversary summons, because then they'll be in the unfeatured pool on the carnival.
Yeah,
so
this is something
that
I
would
was
only
saying
be a better thing for Global.
About like Trunks in one of the videos earlier when I did his showcase. It's like, if you kind of want that Trunks, it's like you don't summon on Frieza's banner just to get him, because when you do your anniversary summons that you've been waiting all year to do, he's going to be in the general pool on those banners. So, but yeah.
But and I promise you, you're gonna want Gogeta, Broly, Beast, and the Gammas more than Trunks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. What were you gonna say, Minato? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say also like in the free tickets and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But anyhow, I think that's basically everything that we have in terms of upcoming and current content in the game. Now we are going to move on to everybody's favorite segment of the podcast. That's right.
Oh, yes.
The Trash Takes segment.
Yes, sir.
So, I, obviously being the host of this week, was the one who picked the trash take for this week. I know my trash takes are very hit or miss, because I swear it's like, even though I swear, ironically enough, I've been dogging on Dokkan, I swear, this entire podcast. I don't know. Like, every time I pick an opinion, I'm never that good about picking a negative opinion, I swear. But I feel like this time my pick was decent. So,
I mean, I
think it'll make for an interesting discussion.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was like, well, I don't agree with that. So I know it's a good pick.
Good. All right. Good. Listen, yeah, I dug deep, bro. I looked inside of me to find my hate for Kakarot. But anyway, yeah, so this was like one where my knee-jerk reaction to this one was like, yeah, no. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting discussion topic. I know I have a lot to say about it. This one says, from Drace, by the way, which I definitely have heard that name somewhere before. Oh, he's in the chat. There you go. Yeah, I was going to say, I knew the name looked familiar.
Oh, yeah, he's a channel regular, so.
Let's go. He said, uh-oh! I see the emojis in the chat. While we do need a new, we do need a friend system update, I believe it's fine the way it is for now. We survived this long. What needs to happen until we get a good update? I'm sorry, I need to reread this, bro. I'm literally having a dyslexic moment. While we need a friend system update, I believe it's fine the way it is for now. We survived this long, LOL. What needs to happen until we get a good update is removing, if possible, bot farmed accounts and people who haven't played in long periods of time.
I think that removing bot farmed accounts would be a good idea, but I feel like that removing people who played it in a long period of time, they just don't want to do that. what they need to do is they need to just make it a bigger range of people you could search for at the bare minimum, because the range of characters that are available is not enough, because there's always times where we see, how do I explain it? Like if you refresh the game or run a refreshes, you find a friend that you couldn't find previously, and you're like, oh, okay, I finally have it. Or it refreshes and you no longer have that friend or the guest that you found. Like you should be able to have a wider range of like search, and if that makes sense. More people should pop up on the friends list than they do right now, because more people are actually in the friends list. They just cap the amount that actually shows up. Like theoretically, you should just be able to load as many friends as possible, just scrolling down, then a load more button, and then you load more, then you can keep going until you find what you need. That'd be cool, but because of that, I don't know. We do need a friend system update. Like we survived this long, it's not fine the way it is now. Unless you're running some of the more popular like teams, sometimes people still run like AGL Gohan as their friend lead, man. Like,
Dude.
come on, let's be real.
Yeah.
Like that's a massive take. I just think that, especially for people that again have not like logged into the game in like a year, maybe like, oh, I want to come back to Dokkan, or my account's deleted. That'd be kind of
Yeah. So I think, Ningen, if you don't mind, I'm gonna lay it on here for this one, because I have a lot of thoughts about this one. So to break it down, right? Because I think that there's a bunch of parts about this. Now I know that Drace did just mention in the chat, when I say remove people, I don't mean remove accounts. I mean keeping them from popping up constantly when talking about the bot farmed accounts. That makes sense to me, because obviously it's just like, dog, if you are... Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I just realized it. Yeah. No, it's like, we don't need it's fine this way it is, but we do need to change.
Yeah, this is definitely a bit of...
He does say why we do need a friend system update. It's fine the way it is now. It's not fine.
Right, it's contradictory, right? So...
a little bit.
Looking at the bottom part, right? Obviously, if it was just like removing bot accounts straight up, sure... It depends, though, because I know I have some friends who like farmed up their account and then they still play the game to this day, and their friend lead is like a normal leader, right? Like they played worldwide, they farmed up an account for it, and now their leader is just like their tech Samasu, right? Like obviously you're not going to remove those accounts because those people come back and play the game occasionally. And the whole problem with the botted accounts is that the leaders stink, right? If they actually played the game to get a leader in the leader slot that is fine, then I think obviously that's fine because it's a usable friendly.
You have to keep in mind that how they updated the game is that the friendly that shows up in the guest list is the character that was used sometimes to clear the event. So people botting accounts, if the botted account was cleared with Rare or with SR Goku as a friend lead, that's a character that could show up if you're high enough rank. And
that's how it works. It's whoever you set as your friend lead. That's what is fierce there.
Yeah, if you're friends with the person, not if they're a guest popping up on the friends list, which is why so many of the SRs pop up. Even if you change your friend lead, it's a character that you cleared the event with.
Are you sure? I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, the random, like, what people call them, like, the mod friends, because they're not actually mods, but it's like, you get a guest appear, and it's like someone has completed the stage with that character. Because there was a time, I remember back in, like, last summer when I was trying to do those Sin versus Omega, Heroes versus Sin attempts with the old Heroes team. Every now and then, but not all the time, which we'll get onto when I have my say about this take, is it would randomly pop up with, like, a guest Hearts friend, but it was the same name person, so it means that basically it means someone had beaten Sin with Hearts as their leader, or probably with Irons.
Interesting.
But that same person could be reused multiple times as like a guest friend. And so that's why those, I think that's what Minato is saying, is that's why those SRs appear, is because someone has cleared that stage with the SR as their leader because it was done with the bot farming.
Right, with the bot farming, See, I was always under the impression that the way that it worked was that you would like, you obviously use the bot to like farm everything. And then obviously because it auto defaults your friend lead to like, whatever random SR when you start the game, because you have to like set it to an actual unit. Because people never change their lead, right? Because what they do, and the whole problem is that people will farm a botted account and then reroll. And then when they reroll and they don't get what they want, then the problem becomes, they leave the account for dead. And because they leave the account for dead, and obviously the account has already run through all of the content in the game, that friend lead is still set as an SR because, obviously that was just like the auto default set leader. And when you run through all the content in the game, right? Like if you use the bot and then run through every single event that's in the game, you will rank up a considerable amount, right? You're not going to be like rank 1 or 2, right? You'll be in the hundreds because there's so much content in Dokkan by now that you just end up ranking up a lot by just, playing through every single event in the game. I was always under the impression that that's how it worked, because then the reroll accounts that are sitting there obviously are, high enough level to appear on the friends list. But because the auto default friend is never changed, then those are the friends that appear there.
Yes, I think the guest ones are just the ones that have cleared the stage before, and then the ones if it comes up as being like
I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm gonna look into that because I feel like I've never heard that before, but I'll figure that out. But regardless, though, either way, moving on from the bot point of that, right? Right. I think that obviously, like, just if someone has an SR set as their friend, right? Like, it should just not appear on the friends list for sure. Or like obviously like a stinky level 1 SSR unless it's clear that they like just started playing the game. Obviously, people who haven't played the game in a while, that one, no, definitely not, and absolutely not, because then that means that if somebody has not played Dokkan in like 4 years or something like that, and then all of a sudden they either see like the new big boy character come around, right? That's like, oh, brand new Gogeta. I want to, re-download the game and, enjoy it. Or let's like, oh, I want to look at my old Dokkan account and like see what it was like, or, whatever the case may be, right? Then it's like, well, now you just can't do that because you haven't played the game for so long. I would think that the better alternative to that would be making those people like inactive on the friends list specifically. So then,
I think
if their account came back,
when Drace put that,
I think he was saying that about
what
the
he
bot.
was clarifying, because it wasn't about the thing
that
specifically. It was just saying,
right,
for people that haven't played the game for a while, it's just make them not appear on the friends list, not like
not remove them. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that would make sense, right? Because in the actual take, obviously it says remove the bot farm account, or remove people who haven't played in a long time. But yeah, either way though, I think making those people inactive for sure. And then, but like the meat of the take, I feel like is also something that is like definitely a big part of this that is something that I feel like needs to be acknowledged as well. First of all, we already acknowledged the contradiction, right? While we do need a friend update, I believe it's fine the way it is now. First of all. And second of all, no.
I guess it's just like saying something is okay, but still could be better,
right?
I guess.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's still kind of funny. That's why I said I was like, only a little.
Right, only a little. But I think that there's so many easy fixes that they could do to the friend system that, like, absolutely we do need an update. Because there are just some teams, like you said, that are just straight up unrunnable because you can't find a leader for them, right? I think an easy solution to that would be have a search button, right? Where you could search for a specific character. Where so it's like, okay, so if you want to run AGL Frieza, right? Like in the little search bar on the friends list, you just type in Frieza, right? And then it would come up with all of the, like Frieza friends that are available to you. Or I saw somebody mention this in the chat, and I know this is something that I've been using a lot recently because I re-downloaded Treasure Cruise because New Gear 5 came out recently. What Treasure Cruise allows you to do is just clone your friend leader. Clone your leader rather. So basically, you know, say I have, right, like Super Saiyan, we'll use our resident goat of the podcast recently, Super Saiyan 4 Goku. If you wanted to run Super Saiyan 4 Goku, but you can't find one on the friends list, right? Literally, it would just clone your exact copy of the leader, and then that's that, right? That's just the way that it works then. Then you just have the friend lead, because obviously it's just, you know, taking it from your, you know, it's just then taking it from your character, basically. And I think that that's fair, because obviously it's like, then, you know, it's not like you're losing anything out in terms of like dupes or anything, right? Like, it's not like then you would have less incentive to summon for dupes. In fact, I think that would be more incentive to summon for dupes, to be honest, because obviously then it would be like, well, you know, you're telling me I don't have to bother with the stinky friend system. All I have to do is just, you know, like summon more, get the unit rainbowed, and then I can just use them all the time, right? Like, you know, that's almost more beneficial for Dokkan for them to do it right there too. And I even, like Drace just said in there, like you could even just have like set a friend lead for each typing or each class, right? Like even, you know, right? Yeah. In fact, the mechanic incentivizes summoning, right? Or you could even just have, like, you know, how some events have like leaders that are like default leads there. You could even have one for like another tab where it's just like a 55% version of like every leader in the game or something like that. That's like a category leader. I mean, that would be a lot, but obviously that's why I would think that would be good for like a separate tab from the actual friends. So I don't know. I think there's so many things that they could do to just like remedy it. And even like, obviously, I think it just needs a revamp flat out. But if they were just small little minimal things that would make it so much better just to be able to find a friend, right? It's so easy, but they just, I don't know. I don't know if it's just they choose not to do it, or if it's that they just don't care. I'm not really sure. But either way, yeah. I do hope that they do actually update in the future. So TED Talk over. Ningen, throw it, go for it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I kind of gave it away at the beginning, right? When I said, as soon as I saw the take, I was like, no, I don't agree with this. Because, yeah, I don't believe it's fine the way it is. You know, we survived this long. I mean, true, but, you know, that doesn't mean it doesn't need fixing. Obviously, there's a couple of the suggestions in here. Removing bot farmed accounts from the friends list is possible. It would be good, I should say, if possible. People who haven't played in a long period of time, if they're not shown on the friends list, I guess that's fine. You know, they're not, as long as we're not touching their accounts, which I'm sure that is what he meant. Because I think even the way it's written, you can read it as long as he says it just means removing. He just means from the friends list, not like removing their accounts. So I think that's fair too. But yeah, to address the main part of the take, and why I would say is an L take, is mainly just because it says like it's fine the way it is, which I massively disagree. You know, the thing you were just talking about, like, incentivizes summoning if you're able to copy your friends list, whereas the way it stands now, it de-incentivizes summoning for certain characters. Because if you're somebody who, you know, we talk about all the time how not everybody's a big part of the community online and all that kind of stuff, but if you're somebody who is at least somewhat aware of the general thoughts and feelings about characters in the community, like for example, you know, we can use AGL Frieza as the example on global. If you're somebody who's already aware from stuff that you've seen on Twitter and things like that, that everybody is saying like, oh, you know, skip this banner's not worth summoning for, you're seeing a bunch of people that you know that play the game saying they're not going to summon, it de-incentivizes you to summon for him, because then if you pull him, you know that it's going to be difficult to find friend leaders to use. And like there are certain characters that, you know, I do very often at the weekend. We do like the viewer challenge streams, and people will suggest random fun teams, and we'll do stupid things like Youth versus Red Zone Zamasu and stuff like that. But then it's like you go into the friends list and it's like, well, there's no Path to Power Kid Gokus, so now I have to wait for somebody in the chat to set their friend for me, whilst I then go and like jump into an event and quit out, so it refreshes the friends list, and then I can actually start the event. And that's fine for me, because obviously, you know, being on stream, like I have people that can set friend leads for me. But if you're somebody who you know, you don't have that, even if you just like don't have many friends IRL that actually play it, like you don't have people that can set friend leaders for you, then there's just whole teams that you just can't run. And the thing Minato addressed it earlier, the thing that is the most frustrating is like we could want a certain leader for a challenge run or a showcase or something, and there'll be people in the chat in the stream that are like, well, I've set mine, but we're not friends in the game, and when I go to search for that particular character, it doesn't find it. So people out there have that unit set as their friend, but it's not showing them when you're searching for them, even though they exist out there somewhere. Like people have that unit set as their friend, but then you're searching for it. Like today was the perfect example, right? I always like to do my summons, I farm the medals, I awaken the character, and then I record the 55% showcase straight away on the stream and then put the video up when the stream ends. And I had to mess around for ages because I couldn't get a Frieza. And even people in the chat were like, oh, I've just awakened mine and set it, but we weren't friends, so I couldn't find them, even though they would have been one of the only Friezas up on global at that time. But searching for, you know, there is that limited search function, but it's like, yeah, searching for extreme AGL Wicked Bloodline, and it's like, no, there's no results, even though I know from someone telling me in the chat that there's a Frieza friend out there on global, but it's just not finding it for some reason. So it's very, very annoying. Overall, like I think the mirroring the friend system for your own friend is something that's been talked about for a long time, and that is probably like an optimal solution. I mean, I know Hydros mentioned it ages ago, but like every version of the private server that exists, regardless of which version it is, that is a function in the game, and the people that have made those like private server clients have literally said, oh yeah, this was super easy to do, just the function to copy your own leader as your friend. So it seems like that is the most straightforward solution. And as you guys said already, like it incentivizes summoning. It also gets around like, you know, Truth with his memes about how, you know, we all joke about how he likes to build his characters. And then he'll mention in videos that like he can only find friends that don't have builds that he would have used himself. It's like, well, if you're copying your own leader as your friend, then they've also got the same build that you gave your unit. So you're able to run the unit the way that you would like them to be run, essentially. So yeah, I think the friend system is probably one of the biggest things that still needs an update in the game that hasn't been looked at for a while. Because yeah, that's the biggest problem, is it just, there are times when you just can't play the game the way you want to, which is super annoying. And as I've already said, if you're not somebody who, you know, let alone you're not like a streamer or anything like that, you don't have a bunch of friends like in a group chat or something like that that play the game and can set units for you. Like, you know, you could pull Frieza today, spend some time getting his medals, then maybe you had to go off and work or whatever, then you come home and you're like, right, I'm going to test out this Frieza that I pulled today. And then you go into like, you try 3 or 4 different events and no Friezas come up on the friends list. So it's like, oh, well, I guess I just don't get to use the Frieza that I pulled like today, unless you're then forced to put him on a different team. And Frieza, as an example, like the couple of other 200% leads that he's on, at least on global right now, aren't exactly the greatest like teams. And I think one of them is Turles, and I mean, good luck finding a Turles friend if you can't find a Frieza friend. So like the problem is just exacerbated even more. Like there's those big super popular characters that you'll always find as friends. Like even now you can find like the worldwide units or the anniversary units, but some of these filler Dokkan Fests, like especially if they're from last year or earlier, it's like good luck like ever finding them on the friends list. So I think it definitely needs an update sooner rather than later, which is why I would say that for me, it is definitely an L take. Sorry, Drace.
Yeah. Drace, I'm sorry.
I'm not. We definitely need a huge update.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I also agree it's kind of an L take, not gonna lie, man.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but thank you. You understood the assignment, as we like to say. So, thanks for the content, brother.
We do like to say that, you know. If we ever get one of those weeks where someone posts a take and we're all just like, yeah, that makes sense, That would not be an entertaining trash take segment. So,
Exactly.
That's what we like to see. But I mean, to be fair, the chat is somewhat split, I will say. So I'll go ahead and end the poll here. As we always say in these sections, appreciate all you guys that come out and watch the show live and take part in the poll. Let us know your thoughts on the trash take. If you're listening to this back on Spotify or watching the VOD and you can make it to a live episode, we'd love to have you, and you can take part in the poll as well. So it's I'm ending it here now, and it's very close actually to being 50-50. It did show 51-49, but YouTube likes to do the not specific rounding down for some reason. So it's 51% L, 48% W. So that's pretty close to 50-50, which is kind of surprising.
That is pretty surprising. I mean,
cool.
Can y'all find friend leads? Because please tell me your secret. I want to know, bro. How you finding these friend leads if you don't got a problem with the system, bro? Anyhow.
Drace in the chat saying he voted L.
Okay.
That's funny. Bro realized his mistake.
I mean, to be fair, we even literally say on the tweet, right, that it doesn't have to be a take you necessarily agree with. It just has to be a hot, spicy take. So,
yeah, that is true. And that was succeeded for sure. I still want to be like, I'm still waiting for the day when we get, like, I'm so excited for when it's going to happen. When we get, like, a trash take that, like, somebody's like, yeah, this is my homie at whatever's take. His take is dog water. Please roast him. Like, they just post their homie's take. I'm waiting for the day it's going to happen, bro, because that will be so funny if it does. Yeah. Oh, man. But anyway. With that being said, that is the end of the Trash Takes segment for this week. Thank you guys for all of your submissions as per usual. Definitely go follow us on Twitter at the Slot One Super Podcast if you'd like to participate in these trash takes going forward, because we always post the tweet of whenever we are going to do them, and then obviously we take them from that week's posts. So, thank you guys for always participating in that. It's always nice to see. We always get a bunch of options on there too. So thank you guys for that. But with that being said, we now move on to our final section of the day, which is, of course, our super chats and donations. I know we had a couple of them come in throughout the stream. So Ningen, take it away.
Okay, so yeah, shout out to everybody for contributing during the episode. All the contributions are much appreciated. So we have one from JC Gamer for $5. Says the sync will probably go down as the most mismanaged thing Dokkan has ever done. Should not have announced it without giving us a schedule. I mean, the first part.
What do you mean? We did get a schedule.
Yeah. First part, obviously, is maybe a little bit hyperbolic. I'm sure there's been some things that Dokkan have done previously that were maybe a little bit worse. But in terms of the last part, I feel like that's probably a very commonly held point of view at this point now, right? That they should have maybe not announced it quite so early.
Yeah.
I think this was general consensus even within a few months, right? Like, because they announced it during the worldwide celebration last year. And then we got into the new year, and a lot of people were, or at least hopeful, I guess, but people were saying, does that mean the 9th anniversary will be synced? Because they've announced it 3 or 4 months before the end of the year, and the anniversary is in February on JP. And then obviously it became apparent that that was not going to be the case, and it wasn't planned to happen for at least, basically, if it is worldwide this year, like a year from when it was originally announced. Which kind of goes back to the thing we mentioned earlier, where they did a similar thing with version Z, where I feel like they just announced it way too early, because of course it's something that a lot of people have wanted for a long time. Like, so a lot of people got really excited about the prospect of it happening, and then it's like, yeah, but it's not going to happen for like over a year now potentially. So
it's like the type of same sort of dealio where, like, when a game company announces their game way too early, and they end up like accidentally killing the hype for the game because, like, it's just been so long since the game was announced that it's like all the initial hype that people had for the game is just like gone now, And sometimes that works out in game companies' favors. I have a feeling whenever Metroid Prime 4 comes out when we're all in a nursing home, that may be the case. But, you know, like some games that kind of works out, some games it definitely doesn't. But I feel like this is absolutely a case where it's like now people are just sort of salty about it because of the way that it was handled. So.
Yeah, they said they'd give us some more info during the anniversary. Hopefully it'll be something a little bit more substantial than what we've received so far. But obviously, as it stands right now, we don't know. So hopefully the anniversary will bring some more clarification. But I guess we will see.
Good tidings. Bro, it's so funny, too, because, like, technically, in terms of just my gameplay, obviously, in terms of a member of the community, it affects me. But in terms of just, like, me playing the game, it doesn't even affect me, because I play JP, and I'm this heated about it, bro. So,
good times.
Empathy for the global players.
Yeah, for real.
All right, so shout out to JC Gamer. Shout out to Weeb of Class for the $15 super chat. Thank you. He says, with Trunks getting a new named character, because obviously the AGL banner unit Trunks is the first Super Saiyan 2 Trunks future. Who else would you like to see get a new name?
Ooh, that's a good
My
question.
top pick right now would be Super Saiyan Broly brackets Restrained. Shout out to Xenoverse 2 for the idea.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, like blue-haired Broly, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying that a very popular one that a lot of people mention is actually getting the Fusion Zamasu brackets Corrupted, right? So that he actually has a different name.
True.
Trying to think in terms of like, because obviously, you know, we can't stray too much into like heroes territory and as in like forms that characters don't actually have. But in terms of uniquely named characters, I know a big one actually that people want to see, because a lot of people want to see the Dual Dokkan Fest with him and Kaioken Goku. Is there's a version of Hit, I think, in Xenoverse where he's called like Pure Progress or something. So it's like Hit with a different name, because obviously Hit units, like they only really link up well with each other, and they got stuck in that same boat like Piccolo was for a long time until we got the Power Awakening one, where it's like every single one in the game just has the same name. So I think a Hit with a different name would be pretty cool. So yeah, I think that.
I was going to say False Super Saiyan. That's what I thought you were going to say with Slug when you're like Dual Dokkan Fest. I don't know if they would actually give him a different name, but to be fair, I believe in the Dragon Ball Super card game, they actually did call him False Super Saiyan. So that would kind of be like my big hope, I guess. I
remember we looked it up on a previous episode, but yeah, I think he does have a different name. I can't remember exactly what it is, but yeah, that's the first time I think in any Dragon Ball media that they've actually done like an actual officially licensed thing where they've actually used like full Super Saiyan. Knowing Dokkan, he'd just be like a base Goku.
That's what I don't want to happen, bro. Yeah. Like I want to be able to run him with Kaioken and Super Saiyan.
My idea is Gohan adult.
No, what do you mean, bro? Gohan from Superhero is still Gohan teen. What do you mean?
Yo, that's the funniest thing you've ever said. Oh my gosh.
Gohan.
That's hilarious.
Please.
That is too funny, bro.
Like, I just don't know why it's like not adult Gohan. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, it really doesn't. What do you mean? He's a teen with a kid and teaching college.
They also have to separate the Brolys from Z and Super, but they're just not going to do that. So
yeah, that would have been something. I think that was what we were all hoping for when that physical Broly came out, right? That he'd be called like brackets Dragon Ball Super or something, because then it limits how well you can run the Z Brolys and the Super Brolys together. So that's another good one, I think. But I think the big one is Piccolo, like we said, was one for a very long time. It's a lot of those characters like Hit, Piccolo, Beerus, where like they don't really have any other forms with different names. So every time we get a new version of that character, they can't be run with like the older versions of those characters, right? So I don't know what obviously they did the Beerus brackets pajamas one for the anniversary, which is a way of getting around it, I guess.
Bro, that was so insulting considering everything that happened with Zamasu as well.
Yeah. It's like Zamasu transforms, well, sort of transforms, I guess, but like half of Zamasu's body transforms into some weird purple goo, and he has the same name, but Beerus puts some pajamas on, and they give him a different name in the game.
He's him.
But yeah, that's pretty funny. But yeah, hopefully we'll see something like that soon. The blue haired Broly, I know, is one a lot of people want to see. People were disappointed when the Saiyan Day one only had that as the SSR, and then obviously his TUR just became legendary Super Saiyan, so that would be cool to see as well. But yeah, shout out to Does he Class.
Have a different name?
He doesn't. I think he's just called Super Saiyan Broly, isn't he? Let me have a look.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Super Saiyan Broly, the tech one.
Yeah, extreme in.
Well, no, I mean like not in Dokkan. I mean.
Oh no.
I think because the comment in the super chat refers to Xenoverse, so I'm assuming it's one of the recent updates then for.
The whole thing with.
Oh yeah, GT17. Like hello, that's weird.
Yeah, where is he? Yeah, he's just called Super Saiyan Broly, which means he has the same name as the Dokkan Fest LR from the anniversary.
Wow! Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird that with the super characters, they never distinguished some of them, because I feel like, like I guess Goku. Right, but they do. Well, maybe it's because GT's not canon, but at the same time, they did that for 17. Well, that's what I mean. They did that before Super came out, because obviously Dokkan existed before Super did. So, like,
it is interesting how, like, those, like, the different GT characters. So, I don't know. I couldn't really tell you for sure why it's like that, but...
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully we do get some more differently named characters, but like we say, they addressed in that question in the producer letter that we will be getting more Dokkan Original characters or Dokkan Original pairings, so at least there's some interesting stuff like that going to be coming. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. So shout out to Weeb of Class for that one. Shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the 5 gifted memberships as well. Appreciate you, my dude. We have our boy Drace. I think this was a little bit earlier in the episode. We have, in my opinion, the Part 2 LR is a Super Saiyan Kefla based on the Universe 6 buffs. Because obviously we got all those Universe 6 EZAs with the Rosé celebration on JP. I'm assuming, is that in the news for JP yet, for the Rosé celebration, the Universe 6 like EZAs and stuff?
Yeah, they put because we already knew it was coming, so they're like, yeah, we're just gonna put it in the news, because usually they do hide that.
Okay.
But this time they're like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But yeah, we talked about some of the options for the Part 2 LR. I think Kefla definitely is a viable choice, especially considering with Rosé leading super bosses, all those Universe 6 EZAs. She definitely fits into the celebration, as long as it's not a base Kefla, because obviously, we don't want the linking issues with the EZA one, but of course, even if she's Super Saiyan 1 or 2, as soon as the other one transforms, they can still link together. So yeah, I think a Kefla is definitely up there in terms of choices. It will be really funny if the LR is Kefla and the SSR is that art that got shown on that banner, and it really was like a leak all that time ago.
That's gonna be funny. That's going to be so funny.
That definitely will be funny. So shout out to Drace for that one. Then we have Ultimate Nice Guy with the $5 super chat. He says, do you all believe that Dokkan making more money from JP hurts global Dokkan players? Doesn't feel like global is respected. Now, I think somebody actually did point out in the chat, I believe global does make more money than JP.
No.
Someone referenced like a Reddit post or something. I don't know for sure, but
no, JP makes more money.
Okay.
Or there's one year where global made like 54%, but it's like I think that was like one specific year, and even then it's like the whole, like if they look at it separately country by country, then JP makes way more than any other country.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Global is like all, like everywhere, basically everywhere that isn't Japan put together is global. So
yeah. The fact that JP still is around 50%.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the fact that JP, even if global did make more, the fact that JP even comes close when it's one country is, I mean, I guess technically it's not, right, because there's, you guys are an example, play JP, not from Japan.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, like, it is kind of crazy that JP still even is up there with global, even if it does. Yeah, JC says last year global made more money than JP. But separated by country, JP makes more. I mean, either way, like we know for a fact that Dokkan makes a lot of money for, isn't it? Dokkan and Legends make up like a significant portion of the income for like all Dragon Ball related media, basically, which is
so it's just the gacha
crazy.
games. It also includes, it makes a good chunk of the Dragon Ball revenue, which is kind of again crazy, like you said, but
yeah, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so I'm not too sure. I mean, that's the thing. It does feel like Global, as you said, with all the things with the sync and like Global first coming out, but then they come out on JP and they get either buffs or they get more content and stuff like that. Like, it's one of those things. It's always been
have good intention, but are kind of dumb.
Yeah, because like it's always been a meme in the community, right? That like Global is like the the unwanted stepchild or whatever, and they just care about JP. Yeah. But like sometimes we get those Global W's. But then
I mean, look at the anniversary banners, dude. During the anniversary, you're gonna summon, you're gonna have discounts, you're gonna have free tickets, you're gonna have tickets that you get from summoning on the banner, right? There's gonna be the countdown stuff that you guys get that are a lot better on Global. There are perks, I think, that, even though there are definitely some downside in the Global, I think people really like to focus on the negatives and not think about, like, especially during the anniversary, the massive Global W's that do come through.
Yeah. I think it doesn't help that, I mean, like, obviously sometimes it's perpetuated for the meme, but realistically, like, Global is, by all intensive purposes, if you don't care about the unit coming out right away, I guess, right? That would be the only stipulation. It is the better version to play because you just get more value for, your summons all the time.
I mean, it's something we said about in the past, right? Obviously, nobody wants to give up their account and switch versions, but like with the sync happening, it's like there's basically, if you're a newer player who's just finding the game now, I say now, the sync obviously hasn't happened yet, but there's basically no reason to play JP over Global unless you are like a fluent Japanese like speaker / reader.
Yeah.
Whereas before the main distinction was, especially if we're talking a couple of years ago, when the gap was pretty much just 6 months and no like sort of lessening in between, whereas now stuff is a lot shorter sometimes. Back then that was the main draw, was that you were kind of sacrificing being able to read the game in English because all the units came out like 6 months before they came out on the Global version. So yeah, now with the sync, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the majority of newer players outside of Japan all being like on the Global version, but hopefully it's been a bumpy road, but hopefully once the sync is actually in place, those waves will kind of smooth out a little bit and then hopefully be plain sailing from there. So I guess we will see, but yeah, Dokkan, whether it's JP or Global, definitely does make a lot of money for Akatsuki and Bandai. So, and we know, as they said in that producer letter, the game still planned to continue long after the 10th anniversary. So, no Dokkan 2 or anything just yet. But...
no Dokkan 2. I mean, bro, I gotta be honest. Like, I don't blame anybody for thinking that maybe Dokkan needs an update or something like that, or that maybe Dokkan would, like, if you don't really know, you would get scrapped. We need Dokkan 2. But like, honestly, Bandai would literally be the stupidest company on the planet if they stopped Dokkan with how much money they make.
Yeah,
like
Dokkan 2.
That would be like, I don't know. Like, I don't really know what other like.
But then we say that, but then it's like, how many times have we said before, like, why are they not continuing the super anime, and why are they not doing this and that? Like, it's stuff to like free waste.
That's a whole nother issue.
For Bandai and Toei are like,
that's a whole nother issue that we won't get into right now. But like, in terms of being Bandai's main moneymaker, like, Dokkan is what makes them like, crazy to say, a majority of their money. So they would be just really stupid to stop the game. Like, that would be like if Elon was just like, I'm just gonna quit Tesla or something. I don't even know what you would like equate that to, right? Like, I don't really even know of like an equivalent thing that would like, I don't know. That would be like if Nintendo was like, we're just gonna stop making Mario games.
FGO 2.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, right. Like
Genshin Impact 2.
Well, I mean, we kind of already have that now, but but anyway.
But yeah, shout out to,
that would just be ridiculous.
Oh, I'm a nice guy for that one. And then we have Joe Fell as well, re-upping his membership, channel member for 9 months. So I appreciate you. But yeah, that is it for the contributions and the shout outs for this episode. So we appreciate all you guys and the donations help to keep the show running. So yeah, thank you very much. And that wraps up those for today.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Sounds good. Yeah, bro, listen. Every time we're like, yeah, there's not a lot to talk about this week. Here we are.
I mean, that's the thing is this week we had new stuff on both versions, which is
that's true. That's true. It's kind of funny though, because it's like, obviously everything that came out, at least for the most part, right, was basically like stuff that we got on each version already. But I digress. Obviously, we have lots of fun stuff to look forward to.
Yep.
I am definitely very excited to see if we do. And I mean, we probably will. It seems like it's pretty likely. But, when it comes to the Part 2 LR, right, it'll be very interesting to see what that ends up being. Obviously, Global is basically a month away from the anniversary. So, of course, that will be very exciting when anniversary time finally comes around. It will be interesting to see what actual sync shenanigans become of the, all the stuff that we've been talking about. But yeah, with all of that being said, that is going to end it for this week's episode. Hope you all enjoy. Thank you so much for coming by. With all that being said, we will catch you in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.
See you next time.
Peace.